Hi and welcome to the We Need a Rose podcast, and this is the second part of our two-part end-of-year extravaganza. And here are our top 10 shows of the year. I'm Neil, and today I'm joined by all my regulars, OG co-host David Long.
Hey, how's it going, Neil?
Our resident sci-fi geek, Ben Lord.
What up? How's it going? And I think you forgot to answer David's question about how's it going, Neil?
Neil. It's fine, but
Good.
I was going to jump to it in a minute, because now we've already heard him say Neil, and we haven't introduced him yet. And that is our US correspondent, Mr. Jose Lopez.
Greetings. Great to be here.
So today we're going to be giving you our own personal top 10 TV shows of the year before the grand finale, where once again, using the power of maths, because it went so well last time, we're going to give you our final combined We Need a Rose top 10 shows of the year list. However, the first part of any good TV list is a brief mention of some of the shows that were great but not great enough to make it into our top 10 list. Welcome to the long list section. David, what shows have you got that didn't make it in?
I have two shows this year. They were The Legends of Vox Machina, season 2, which was on my top show. Season 1 was in my top 10, I think, last year.
Yeah, I think it was.
But anyway, there's that.
I saw it. Not impressed. No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, we'll be,
Sorry, I can't help
we'll be having
myself.
fisticuffs. Queen Charlotte, the Bridgerton spin-off. I just saw it. It was a show I saw this year.
I mean, does that qualify it to be on the list, David?
Oh, well,
Because
yeah, kind of. Well, it was enjoyable for what it was.
did you only watch 12 shows this year then? Is that what
And a
it
show
is?
called Red Rose, which I bumped into the actress of Red Rose on the train. It's a fun story for everybody. Don't know the actress's name, but it was definitely her, because me and my wife were like, oh my God, is that her? They were like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's her. Where's she from? And then we were spending
I remember you messaging
yeah, we
me
spent
about
like
this.
about 2 hours trying to work out where we recognise this woman from. And then we realised it was from the TV show we were just watching.
But that show wasn't from this year, David.
Red Rose was from this year.
No, it's not. It's from BBC from about 2-3 years ago.
No.
And then Netflix acquired it and stuck it on there, which is probably where you saw it, right?
Oh, probably, yeah. Okay, I didn't know that.
Oh, now you do. Now you do. Right, Ben, what have you got on your long list?
My long list is reasonably surprising, I think. When I went to build my top 10 list, I didn't open like a Google search and check out what was done. I just went with my mind and what things had made me happy this year and what I'd really enjoyed watching. And I missed off, surprisingly, The Bear season 2 off of my list.
What?
Yep, I know. And
What?
it's a perfect show and it should be on my list. But when I was thinking, like, without the aid of the internet, it didn't pop into my mind. Therefore, I left it off my list.
I admire your
Stupidity, yes,
Honesty?
you should admire it. It's earth-shattering. Yeah, I kind of stuck to my guns on it because I mean, I could have. These lists can go on for days and days because there is some brilliant TV out there. I also missed so Loki season 2 was not on there. Because I feel like we talked about that earlier in the year, and I genuinely think it'd be better as a movie if it would have just been like 90 minutes, first and last episodes just jammed together somehow. I'd have loved it more. Black Mirror was really good, but I didn't put that on. Didn't make it onto my list. I thought it was a bit lackluster in comparison to the other seasons, but.
I forgot that Black Mirror
Yeah, it
was
was,
out.
and it was
Yes,
one
you're
of
right.
those ones that I sort of came to. I was looking at all your guys' lists and Neil's long list as well, and I was like, yeah, I watched Black Mirror, I enjoyed it, but nowhere near as much as the other seasons, and other things have overtaken it, quite a lot. And the last thing, I had to pick one Star Trek season to miss out, and I don't know why I picked Lower Decks, but I did. Lower Decks being the one thing, like I'd like to creep it on there. It would be quite high on the list, but like there were other Star Trek properties that made me emote more, like in a very serious kind of way. Whereas Lower Decks is consistently genius and brilliant. And there's a caveat with my Lower Decks, which you'll see when we get onto my actual list. But those are the four that I feel like I should give a proper nod to and be like, they're the ones I missed out.
Nice. Jose, what you got?
I have to admit the same thing. There's just so many good shows out that, but I tried to go by memory for the top 5, because obviously then that means they really left an impression. But Apple TV, I think, had a really good selection of shows. 2 that did not make my list. The After Party, which it was a second season showing, I thought was a fun show, but like the first season actually was stronger. And then with the first season of the Big Door Prize,
Yes, that's on my.
I thought it was good, but the finale just didn't wrap it up well enough. I think it worried too much about having a second season, and it left things just a little too unopened for my preference.
I don't know, man. See, I think with the Big Door Prize, I thought it's one of those shows that started okay, but then it dragged me in more and more each episode. And
oh no, it got great. But I just don't think the finale really stuck the landing.
But it's based
for me,
on a series
honestly.
of books, so they know there was going to be another one, right?
Yes, but Silo, like spoiler warning, Silo did a better job at stopping at a point in a way that made me want to wait for next season. Big Door Prize, I was just like, okay, you know. But I'm looking at Ben's list, and you, I mean, granted, David's list is very different, but there are some shows that I did watch where I really enjoyed, but they just didn't crack the top 10, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I jump back onto my ones now, and yeah, Silo, I agree with you there, man. I think based on a series of books by Graham, I mean, it's got Rebecca Ferguson in it, so obviously I was going to watch it. But when I started watching it, it was one of these shows where I just like, it's clearly going to end one of two ways or three ways, right? It's going to be she leaves the bunker and dies, she leaves the bunker and it's a lie, or some combination of all of it. And it was some combination of all of it. And
she left the bunker and became undead.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what you're getting at?
Spoiler, that's exactly, yeah, she's a vampire in season 2.
Hooray.
Vampire zombie. Mm-hmm. But no, it was very good. But I think with Fallout coming next year, it kind of felt like a side story from the Fallout TV show. Like, as well acted as it was, and as great as the flashbacks were to fill in all the backstories, it just felt a little bit, yeah, it didn't make my list as good as it was, just purely because it felt like a side story from a much larger show.
Oh, okay.
We got Beef. Anyone remember Beef from near the start of the year? It was a South Korean.
Yeah, I started watching that recently.
Beef again.
Beef. The word's lost all meaning now. Yeah, it's a South Korean American comedy drama with Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong, and it's equal parts funny and disturbing. Also, it was such a tense series that it went on.
But it kind of didn't go anywhere. Like, it just felt like it fell off the cliff, and I was just like, man, come on. It was so well acted and so brilliantly put together, and it just... The trailer for it on Netflix didn't gave you some really tantalizing tidbits, and then you go into the show and it's nowhere near as grabbing, and it just, I don't know, it just all fell apart like wet cake.
That's the issue I had with it. Like, we watched the first two to three episodes, and it just, it didn't grab me. Didn't grab either of us, and it's sort of one of those shows that just petered out.
Because you're vegetarian, David.
That was awful, Neil. No. Actually, to be fair, Jose laughed a little bit, so it wasn't as bad as your bad ones.
There you go.
To be fair, I love dad jokes, so...
Right, and next up, I got Poker Face. Anyone watch Poker Face? Rian Johnson's modern-day Columbo with Natasha Lyonne, basically as Columbo, down to the voice and the shambling and everything.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Oh,
I love that show.
Yeah.
Columbo's awesome.
I love her as an actress with the shows she's been doing. Like the Russian was really good.
Oh, yeah. I think this is better, to be fair. Because what he's done, he's basically, Rian Johnson since Star Wars has basically just become the, I want to make old-fashioned style mystery movies and shows with Knives Out. And this is him basically doing Columbo. It's literally, it's a procedural, and I'm not usually a fan of procedurals. I like a show where it's got, more of an overarching arc each episode that builds over the course. And this has that a little bit. I mean, the basic story of the series is she's a casino worker who can tell when someone is lying. And then obviously it all goes wrong at the casino she's working at in the first episode, and then she's on the run. But what's great is every episode, there's another major big actor guest star in it, and she'll be working some shitty menial job, and it'll just happen on the mystery or the murder or wherever it is. I mean, Joseph Gordon-Levitt turns up in one episode, and he's superb in it. Nice. I mean, there's one where she's like a merch girl for a heavy metal band, Ben, and it's just so bad. I was watching it going, none of these people know what being in a band is about, or I could just imagine you watching this and getting very angry with how bad the whole thing is shown.
I'll make notes.
Yeah, but no, it's a really good show, and obviously it's got a little thoroughfare of people are trying to get her, but each week she just kind of escapes at the last minute. But yeah, I mean that was a really good show. But again, I think it's that recency bias thing where it was out in January. I think I started watching it, and then it was done in time. Have to mention the show that we talked about on a couple of episodes that had our most downloads ever, because it's got a massively engaged fandom, and that was Lockwood & Co. Thinking about it, that probably should have made it onto my list. But again, it's one of these things that was earlier in the year, binged it, and then kind of forgot about it, except for when we mentioned it about top 3 shows Netflix are cancelled. We did one of those episodes, and just it was through the roof. People just was sharing our episode everywhere. There are rumours potentially still now that Disney Plus might actually bring it back, which would be awesome.
Really?
Yeah. It's a bit late in the day, I think, because like all the actors have clearly moved on to other stuff now.
Yeah, but Disney can reboot stuff if they need to. Like, I don't think that's too much.
But
of a hardship
Netflix
these
don't
days.
generally sell their properties off.
Weren't
They keep
Disney
them.
the ones that were like culling shows like left, right, and centre though?
Yeah,
Like,
they
they
got
just
rid of
kept-
Willow. That was
just,
on
like,
air
dropped
for
off the
about
map.
6 months.
And that was awesome. I love that show.
Yes, Ben. I fucking.
I
love
don't
Willow.
understand exactly what they're doing over at Disney. They've gone. I know that Bob Iger was on. I did an interview recently where he said we're going for quality, not quantity. And I understand that of the movie franchises for sure. But like, they've culled a load of Star Wars stuff. They're like replanning everything, and I'm like, that's fine if it's going to be really, really good. But you know, did you have to pull the trigger on cutting stuff that
Can
quickly?
you just leave it on there so it maybe finds a newer audience? Or,
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, there's fucking 8 billion people on this planet. I'm pretty sure that a few million of them are going to watch Willow eventually, and then all of a sudden becomes a cult classic. You know?
I mean, no, what I loved about Willow was actually Willow should be on the list. To be fair, I forgot about that. Completely forgot about Willow.
Was that this
Uh,
year? I thought it was last
Was
year.
it this year? I think it
I
was.
think
like,
it's this year. I think
Yeah, didn't it cross over? I think. Like,
Oh, it
may
might have done.
ended
Yeah,
like
it might-
really
they
early.
was when we were at Disney World. They were still advertising Willow about the park, like massive posters everywhere, all on the buses and stuff, and they'd already cut it off the service.
Oh, really?
That's insane.
But there was still
Really?
the adverts.
Is
were
it still
everywhere
available
for
in the US, Jose? Do you know?
No, they it's completely gone.
Wow, cutting off their nose.
No, but I'll tell you what I liked about Willow, right? How many times do you see fantasy shows where they're quite serious? This was
Yep.
fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Yep.
Also, characters
Mm.
having American accents in fantasy. That never happened except in the original Willow as well. So I love that. I was like, why make an actor or an actress? So ironically, though, the main actress, Ellie Bamber, who plays Laura Dannon, she's English, but she's doing an American accent, which was like, of course, you're going to swap it the other way around on there.
Well, yeah, because both her parents were American with American accents, so she had to play it that way. But like, I like the way that they like alluded to like Mad Mardigan and was just like he was like this anti-hero still, but off screen because obviously Val Kilmer's like
Yeah.
you know is unfortunately the way that he is. And
Christian
you know-
Slater was a nice little.
Oh, I love
guest
that.
starring.
Anything you give me anything with Christian Slater, man, I'm going to watch it for days. Cuffs, one of the most underrated movies of all time, by the way. Just gonna throw that out there.
But also with that show, it kind of, for me, it got better and better, but it made me think of early season Buffy, you know, like it had that kind of, and
Yep.
especially with like, we're going to spoil the ending of the show now, where you basically have Dark Willow, like Dark Allura Danan, and I was like, they're definitely channeling like Dark Willow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was like,
Yeah,
they've
from
literally
Buffy, yeah.
done Dark Willow with Willow, so I love that. I was like, I couldn't wait. And then of course the end credits, you've got book 2, book 3. I was like, yes. And then their fuckers cancelled it. So yeah,
I can't
fuck
believe
you.
that. I mean, I don't understand why. Like, I mean, this goes for like any series ever. Like, there was a Nerdist podcast with Chris Hardwick who said like one of the reasons that he loved Doctor Who was that the BBC had this really great sort of vibe towards it where they would just put it on hiatus. And they just shelve it for a couple of years, and then when they were like, "Oh, we've got nothing to fill this gap. Let's film some Doctor Who. Fuck it, whatever. We can pick it up and drop it as we go." And he was making this case for like, why don't major, studios do that? Like, if you've got a property like Willow, we just shelve it for a few years. When you've got a gap in the market, you bring it back.
I think that's what they've kind of hinted at, because the writer and like the producer of it, the guy who was like the showrunner, was like, "Look, it's not cancelled," and it's like, "Well, it pretty much is." And he was like, "No, it's not cancelled. It's just like pretty much what you said. Like, it's on hiatus, and at some point we are going to bring it back.
That's
Don't know
great.
how long it's going to take
Why
us."
take it off the service though?
Exactly.
Why do you
That's
just
the thing
leave
that's
it?
weird. Yeah,
Just leave
Yeah,
it.
and well, we can get into that on it. I think we're going to do a podcast about that in the next year. We got like loads
Yes,
to talk
sir.
about on that.
Yes, sir.
But moving on quickly, Boiling Point. Did anyone watch the film Boiling Point? It was on Netflix. It was the one take UK answer to The Bear.
No, you did tell us to watch it, and I didn't.
The film was
No.
very good, starring Stephen Graham. And then after The Bear came out and was really successful, BBC were like, "Oh, would you like to make that into a TV series as well?" And they did. I think it was a 4 or 6 episode series that went out on BBC One. And again, all the cast come back. It obviously wasn't all one take, but it honestly, as a UK companion piece to The Bear, it was spot on. It was so good and so authentic. And it's funny because you shouldn't really compare them. But then again, the director and writer of the show was like, "No, compare them all you want. Like, why can't we do crossovers? I'd love it to like one of my chefs goes over to that show and like vice versa, and there's literally no reason why it couldn't happen. So they are planning more seasons of that show as well. As you mentioned, Ben, Black Mirror, I think it was only 5 episodes this season, but I did enjoy was it Demon 79? I thought that's the only one I can remember off the top of my head right now, so clearly
that was one of my least favourites.
But that's the thing about Black Mirror, though, isn't it? It's because it's an anthology show. Different shows appeal to different people in different ways.
But it strayed so far from technology is going to kill us, or it was basically a fucking. It was like the last episode was like a horror. It was like there was a werewolf episode, and I was like, all right, I get it. Like it's kind of out there, but like Black Mirror freaked everybody out because of the possibility of it actually becoming true.
I think we're just living in those times though now, so it's not as scary.
When did Netflix pick Black Mirror up?
After season 3, I want to say.
Is that where that shift happened?
It was Channel 4,
Yeah.
The shift happened.
I feel it was pretty solid.
I think when the shift happens, you suddenly notice there's lots more big American actors in it and a lot more money thrown at it. Quickly on two shows that didn't make most. I'm kind of similar with you, Ben, with all the Star Trek stuff this year. Lower Decks also didn't make my top 10, but it was awesome.
It was awesome.
And I've got Picard season 3 on there. And as we talked about before, I thought season 1 of Picard was solid and ended really well. Season 2 was utter dog shit and horrible, and then season 3 was absolutely amazing.
They blew the doors off.
Pulled it all the way back. So I'm assuming we're probably going to have a bit more Star Trek chat later. What We Do in the Shadows season 5, which is all on Disney Plus now. Again, for a show, it's just Matt Berry doing funny voices, and I don't care. It's just hilarious. You could just call it the Matt Berry Vampire Show, and everyone would still watch it. Oh, of course, Colin Robinson.
They need to bring back Year of the Rabbit, man. That was his best show. That thing.
I loved Year of the Rabbit.
That was such a good show, man. God damn it.
So Shrinking was the guy, Bill Lawrence, who did Ted Lasso and Scrubs. And this is the show he left Ted Lasso to go and do. And clearly you can tell because Ted Lasso just got worse and worse each season for me as it like kind of after his influence on it dropped.
Big disagree there from Ben.
Well, we can disagree about it later because I believe it might be on someone else's list. Sex Education season 4, which we've done an epic spoiler podcast on.
How did that not make your list? What is wrong with you? How did that not make your list?
There's a lot of really good stuff on my list, and there was more than 10 amazing shows this year, out of which is one. Also, probably my last one I would say is really good is Loki season 2. I don't think it's as strong as Loki season 1. I think Loki season 1 was better overall, but then the finale of Loki season 2 was absolutely amazing. And as Ben said, you could have just mangled episode 1 and 2 together and made like a Groundhog Day style movie, but with Loki in it and have the same ending because it was such a brilliant end for that character arc for that character. One other show, briefly took Mando season 3. It was fine, but it should have been called The Book of Bo-Katan. Ahsoka, again, it was fine. It looked really nice and was really well acted, but it moved at a glacial pace. And probably the big notable omission that as a show, what is going to be on almost everyone's list of the year, and it isn't actually going to be on ours, and that is Succession. Because I've struggled through season 1 and just couldn't get into it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I never watched.
I've only ever given it one episode.
I think raved about it. She's like fully into it. It was like had watched it the second the finale came out. She was like all in. I think it's one of those series that once you get it, once you're into it, it will not let you go. And it's I think I'm just not at the right frame of mind to get into it right now. And
I don't know if it's a binge show, right? I think it's one of these shows you need to watch one at a time, let it marinate and get excited about because they didn't release it. The release pattern for it was old-fashioned. It was one a week. Yeah. And, of course, if you try and get into it a couple of seasons deep, and then you can go, I'm just going to watch all 8 or 10 of the first season. And for me, it just got a bit samey. I was like, right, these are arseholes doing nasty things. And you can say, oh, yeah, there's no one to root for. But then people are like, well, you don't have to you don't have to have someone to root for. No, you don't. But for enjoyment of the show, you kind of want to.
Yeah, I think I agree.
I can watch it and go, yeah, look, it's amazingly well written. It's really sharp. The performances are superb. It's just not for me. Yeah, I think. And I'll give it a try at some point. So that brings us on to our top 10s. So we're going to start. David, what do you have at number 10 on your list?
My number 10 show is one that I changed recently that you were super happy with, Neil. And it's do documentary shows count?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. So on Netflix at the moment, there's a World War II documentary called World War II From the Front Lines. It is narrated by...
Is it about World War II?
Believe it or not, Jose, it is. And I know, shocking.
I mean, that was easier than Brooklyn 45. We figured that one out. That's a good little figure out.
It's narrated by John Boyega, but it's really well narrated. Like all the footage. Okay, so with World War II documentaries, there's like tons of it. It's probably the most documented TV like thing ever, event ever, right?
True.
So
there's a lot of stuff covering it.
What I specifically liked about this was how all the footage was colorized and it's narrated by people that were living in that event from all different angles. So it's not just one viewpoint; it's every viewpoint from each conflict, and it's a very broad overview of World War II from everyone's perspective, narrated from everyone's perspective, and all the colorized footage sort of brings together this really beautiful strung story of how World War II unfolded. And I just found myself really enjoying it, and it kicked off Queen Charlotte and Legends of Vox Machina.
That's only one show, David.
Yeah, but there's a second show that's going to make this list as well.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, World War II from the front lines. That was my number 10. Yeah.
Ben, what you got at number 10?
I'm going to go with my number 10 is Ted Lasso season 4. Like just an emotional journey through all 4 seasons of that. I don't care that Bill Lawrence left. I did feel that the series was like this final act in this series was sort of rushed because they figured out that it was their last season. I don't know how far into writing it, but it did go a little bit.
I think it was in season 2 when Bill Lawrence left.
A bit rushed. It was, but season 3 was good, man. Like it's something that I think was really important. Like when season 1 came out, everybody was dealing with the COVID nonsense, and it was just this really feel good show that had these incredible characters, really well fleshed out characters that were hilarious and had made like real life situations just in the backdrop of a football club, and it's led to people like really reevaluating what it is they expect from TV. And I think that it doesn't have to be now, like it was kind of ballsy when it first came out to be the hero of the piece just being this guy that almost lets people walk all over him but doesn't, and season 4 everybody got their ending. Like Ted Lasso was always going to, I think, end up where he ended up and do that. And lots of people have said that there wasn't enough Ted in season 4, but I think
because he was basically running the show.
Yeah, well, that's
and he's not a showrunner, so I think that's kind of part of the issue with it.
Yeah, and I still enjoyed it. I still thought it was really good. I liked everything that the show embodied, and I think it was a really important show for where we are in society as well as where we are in TV. Like it's really easy to make shows popular by having everything blow up and someone go around punching everybody to death. But when you've got a guy,
Jack Reacher,
which may or may not also be on my list, it's like I think it's really important that you have characters that have heart and that defeat like the quote unquote bad guys with love as opposed to with violence. And like if there was more of that, I'd stand behind it 100%. I didn't concentrate on its faults, not unlike Neil, who just saw Bill Lawrence leaving and then
there's much more wrong with it than Bill Lawrence leaving.
Absolutely not.
For me,
completely disagree.
But everything you've just said, man, I 100% agree with.
Interesting.
And it's good that you can view the show that way because again, you're not a football guy, are you, Ben?
No, I can't. Football is my least favorite sport.
And I think that's why the show is a slow build, right? Because when it came out, people were it's a show about football based on like an advert for NBC that Sudeikis did as a joke once.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have the most auspicious of starts. But it went from a half an hour comedy about a football manager who was clueless, and it was a whole culture clash thing.
Yeah.
To a almost hour-long emotional drama each week.
Yeah, I think it definitely built to that in season 4. But I think
I was doing it in season 3.
Season 3. Well, the finale was like however long, like an hour and a half or whatever it was long. I remember it being like ridiculous, but like it might not have been as long as that. But
no,
it
felt like it.
I do see like it strayed from what it started out as, but I think that's because the heart of the piece grew, and I think that the heart of it overtook a lot of things. And I think I still really appreciate it for what it became, as well as where it started. So, you know, like I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about the football side of things because I couldn't give a fuck if the team won or lost because.
Yeah, but that's the problem
That's
with me.
my
That's
thing.
one of the problems I had. Is neither did Ted. Like I remember he walks in and goes, "Who are we playing today? You got a cup game against your biggest rival, and you're literally like, you would know. You know, I know you've got, and it feels like the writers and like the production guys on it were just like, right, people care about the characters, not the football. So let's just push the football to the side, and that's fine. But you started as a show. If you're going to do that, at least get what you're doing in it right still. And the amount of things they got just blatantly like. I mean, it does create this almost perfect world of football, doesn't it? Like, can you imagine? I don't believe for a minute, and it's good though. It's the portrayals are great in it. Like when you have the gay footballer storyline in the last series, that was really well done. But also, I don't believe for a second every single member of his team would be that openly supportive of him, even in this day and age. That's what we'd want them to be, which is absolutely the point the show's making, which is great.
Yeah.
There's how many are there actually in real life? There's two, I think, isn't there? There's one. There's an Australian footballer that came out as gay, and I think there's somebody in the championship.
But that's what I mean. There's no one in the top leagues.
There's only two footballers.
But that's the point of the show, though. That's what the show does well, is getting that across right.
Yeah. I bet Crystal Palace are fucking pissed off. Like if Crystal, because the whole show is Crystal Palace, isn't it? Richmond uses Crystal Palace in the background. Crystal Palace would be the biggest club in the world if they'd have just let them use Crystal Palace instead of Richmond.
No,
They'd
still be second to Wrexham because of Ryan Reynolds and Rob Ackroyd.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think also again with the team, another example of it being a little too idealistic when the photos are, of Keeley were leaked, and then everyone on the team's like, delete everything from your phone, and like everyone's like, all right,
it's an allegory, man.
And,
like you can't,
exactly.
Like it's like we're gonna say on our lists, we're gonna say there's a bunch of science fiction on all of our lists. There's gonna be fantasy stuff. There's gonna be sci-fi. We're not gonna sit there and go, well, you know what? Like NASA says that's not the way they make their fucking starship. So fuck that show. Like that's just
really, you're not for that argument.
It's not as important as the message they're trying to put across. And I think that's what like some people, especially the critics and Neil Gregory, has they like to screw down on stuff like that. Whereas I personally don't. Like I'm all about it. I thought it was I mean, I'm going to round this out now on a positive by saying that I really enjoyed the entire journey. Yes, the show changed immeasurably from where it started, but I like where it left all the characters. I like that it was just a positive piece to give everybody, like a little bit more love in their hearts. Come on, bring it on.
And for the record, I did like the
no
season.
backpedaling, no backpedaling, Jose. And Jose, what do you have at number 10?
My number 10 is a show called Hijack with Idris Elba.
Nice, yeah.
And it's kind of hard to think in this day and age that a show could pull off a plane hijacking with modern times and all the security checks. But I thought it was really well done because from the first episode, you realize that Idris Elba is not necessarily a clear-cut hero. He's a pretty interesting kind of almost anti-hero. But ultimately, he shows his true colors and is a really good at what he does. The show basically it's hijacked. A plane is hijacked, and Idris Elba is a negotiator for a large corporation, even though they didn't really go into that backstory very much. But then the whole process...
Idris Elba is the negotiator. Actually, no, that's Samuel L. Jackson.
The rest of the show gets really interesting because you're like, after the first episode, you're like, how are they going to keep this going? And they do a pretty good job of just kind of bringing things up and showing you how they could potentially do things. I don't want to give anything away because I actually would recommend people watch it just because it's something different, honestly. I think some of the shows on my list are just very good at being different. And that's why I enjoyed them, because it's like, there's some shows that are very similar sometimes, or like second seasons or third seasons of shows. But this one was new and I really enjoyed it. And I just say that I think it's worth watching.
I mean, it's definitely, it has to be a one and done, right? Because you can't just put Idris Elba on another form of transport that gets hijacked. I mean, you could put him on a boat, but then
boat.
That would be,
you could put him on a cruise. Idris Elba on a cruise.
P2 cruise control.
P2 cruise control.
Does that work out well for everyone? I'll tell you what I liked about it was because I like a lot of Alba stuff, but he does tend to do like the big shouty, punchy man kind of thing a lot. And in this, he was much more restrained.
Mm-hmm.
He was he couldn't use violence to like at the start anyway to kind of like take over. But I love the fact that they did it real time. So it kind of immediately made me think of 24 back in the day. You know, it's like a real time show.
I wouldn't say real time, but
that's
like a
the
little
idea.
slower
Each
for
episode
sure.
is an hour of the journey because it's 7 hours from
Is it
from
really?
Dubai to London. So that's the whole selling point.
I was kind of trying to keep up with that, but I don't think it was exactly like minute for minute.
I mean, it kind of gets for me. It gets a bit stupid as it goes on, but you're so into the ride, then you don't care. You're like, okay, obviously that's absolutely
that's
done
true.
what that character's done, but we need them to do that for the next part to go on, which we really want to see. Also, Neil Maskell plays
True.
Stuart, who's one of the main kidnapper guy. He is absolutely superb. I don't think I've seen him in anything where he's not. This guy doesn't play a complete psychopath.
Yeah.
Like he was in Sightseers, the Ben Wheatley one, where it's just. And also Max Beasley as the copper, who's actually the most useless copper of all time in it. He literally there's a bit in one episode where he tries to bluff the kidnappers, and so they just murder someone, and he's like, "Oh shit, I got that badly wrong, didn't I?"
Yeah. Ted Lasso wouldn't have done that.
So at number 10, I've got a show which I hardly seen anyone talk about this year, and it's Dead Ringers on Amazon Prime. And it's a gender-flipped adaptation of David Cronenberg's film about two twin gynecologists, in the original played by Jeremy Irons, in this one played by Rachel Weisz. Yeah. And honestly, I think the extreme childbirth shots at the start of episode 1 just put a lot of people check out on it, because it's grim as. Like, it's so grim. But, I mean, this is actually the second time Weisz has played twins. Can you name the other time she played twins in a movie?
Constantine.
Yes. Bonus point to Jose if there were points for this.
That was a great movie.
But honestly, man, she's so good in this. But she's playing twins, right? So one of them's like the more bookish, normal one, and then the other one's a raging psychopath. And so, but they keep changing out. They'll just literally at the opening scene, they're in hospital and one of them just change, and then they literally pretend to be the other person. So as you're watching the show, you're not sure which one. So so not only have you got people who look identical in the show, because it's the same actress playing both of them, obviously, but you don't know which one of them they're playing sometimes. So you're just watching it going, what is going on? Is that the first twin, or is that the other one now? Or is it the first twin trying to be the other twin? But it's so good though, man. It's she's so good in it. But I mean, Rachel Weisz, that's all I have to say. Amazing. David, what do we have at number 9?
Hello. This is where I might upset you, Neil, because this is where orders have changed and maths comes into play. But you're just going to have to deal with it because it's happening. Okay, you ready? It's Loki. Okay. It's changed positions. Loki's gone down on my list from where it was. Down, yeah, because it was... I think on the list I sent you, he was in 7th spot. And now it's gone to 9. So Tom Hiddleston's gone down to 9. I know, it's sad about it. But anyway,
you said in the group chat that where you changed your list, it wouldn't affect the standings. If you've moved one from 7 to 9, that's gonna fuck Neil's abacus right up.
I lied.
I'm all about this. This is gonna be hilarious.
I knew he'd get blood clots, wouldn't he? Like Neil, you know what he's like. He'd get like a brain aneurysm.
Luckily for you, David, and for my brain, it doesn't affect.
There we go. So there, Loki is number 9 on my list. Everyone's favorite god of mischief is looking for Miss Minutes and Sylvie in the multiverse of the and the TVA, trying to save the TVA. To be honest, the pacing of this show from basically everything up until the 5th episode, I think, was a little slower and a little bit there was even some characters that I couldn't remember from the first series.
We all couldn't remember that character.
And then they were who are they even talking about? I had no idea. But the 5th and 6th episode, it just knocks it out of the park. The finale of the show was just spectacular. And that's why it made the list.
I liked Loki. It didn't make my list because the whole last episode, I'm like, this looks awesome. I have no idea what's going on. There was no actual basis for what we're supposed to know.
It's a good. I kind of disagree though, Jose. I felt like it was the one time I could actually understand everything that was going on in those 2 episodes. Whereas the build up to it, I was a bit it was all a bit the pacing was a bit slow, and there was characters being introduced or reintroduced that I didn't care about.
See, the problem is with season 1, it was a different crazy thing each week. You had the who is Sylvie beforehand. You had the
Hmm.
who were who's killing people, all that kind of stuff, and it did something absolutely crazy and like really out there every week. This series was just right. We all need to be friends and save the TVA. That's it, and you could just condense all that down, like Ben said earlier, and it would have been an amazing film if they'd made a film called Loki, and it was just the best bits of that. People would have been fucking hell. That's your best Marvel film of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think it went down a little bit on my list because of the Kang.
Not he who remains, he who should not be named now.
Yeah, and that news. So
Yeah.
that because it's kind of just it feels a little bit pointless now, a little bit.
John Boyega's in talks to take over Kang. That would be
No,
amazing.
he responded in a tweet saying no, thank you, or something to that
That's
effect.
probably wise because you don't want to be stepping into those shoes. I don't know why I'm whispering this.
It's just but I'm involved. No, it made me listen way more. I felt like I was in. So wait, I didn't hear this news. So what did you
So
find out?
I heard that John Boyega was in talks, or at least had been approached by Disney to take over the role of Kang. And Jose has just informed me that he is tweeted as to say no, that's not a thing he's going to do, which is a
Correct.
shame.
So now you're all caught up, David.
Loki number
All
9.
right, next.
Ben, what did you have at number 9?
Oh my god, number 9. Number 9. I'd be amazed if this show is on any of your lists, having read them and know that it's not. Is Perry Mason season 2. HBO are knocking it out of the park with Perry Mason at the moment, if you ask me. The first season was phenomenal, and the second season is just as good, in my opinion. This season of Perry Mason 2, the basic outline is the main character Perry Mason, who was a investigator.
Hold on.
Are you sure you've seen the show, Ben?
Yes,
So the
Very
show
sure.
is about Perry Mason. I
yes,
just wanna
But
make
young
sure.
Perry Mason, right? It's young Perry Mason.
young Perry Mason. So
My mum watched this show, Ben, and she was a fan of it.
yes, well, she's very smart. So it's like it is about a young Perry Mason. He's in the first season he was an investigator, and then he became a lawyer. John Lithgow was in that season, and he played like Perry Mason's sort of
Nemesis.
no, his
Oh, I don't know how to say
his
it.
teacher is like
Right.
the guy he looked up to, and then he dies, and Perry Mason played incredibly
So
well.
Obi-Wan.
Played incredibly. Shut up by Matthew Rhys, who is wonderful in absolutely everything he does. So this season it was about two Latino guys who were wrongly convicted of murdering the son of a super rich mega white guy. And it's so it's set like back in the 50s, I guess. Like I'm just trying to look that up right now, but it's so in the 30s, 1932 Los Angeles, and it's just really well done. The tension in every episode, it's less about sort of it's like a courtroom drama. You want Perry Mason to win, but also like what happens to you really care about the people that he's defending, because he's trying to make his way in in the second series as a lawyer. Like Sean Astin's in it, who plays this complete arsehole store owner who's just fucking brilliant. He never really gets the outcome that you want. It's not like he succeeds and saves the day and everybody's happy. It's kind of like he scrapes through and he gets to the end of it and you're like, fuck, that could have been a lot worse. So it's really gritty, it's really down to earth, and I really like the fact that whilst the heroes come out on top, they don't really come out on top the way you expect, and sometimes you're questioning whether they have come out on top. But it's just beautifully acted. It's the set pieces are stunning. Like it looks authentic from every single shot. It raises a bunch of questions about like society, like are we still wallowing in in what was in today's society, when you start to draw parallels about how people are treated in the justice system and stuff. So like I just thought it was absolutely fucking perfect.
I got some bad news for you, Ben.
Go on, dude.
It's been cancelled.
I know it's been cancelled. Yeah, I was bummed, but I mean, to get 2 seasons of that, I was blown away. I was like, no one's gonna have the guts to do something like this for a while.
Did it at least end in a way that makes sense with
Well,
it?
yeah, because isn't
without
each
it being
series a different case?
Yeah. So he solved this. So he solved the last case. He solved the last case, and the last case was about a dead baby. It was fucking awful, but yeah, it was rough. So yeah, and they solve the case, and you can kind of like, I guess you could leap from the end of that season to the original Perry Mason series, and you'd be like, yeah, there's some times past, and he's just carrying on doing his thing.
It reminds what you were saying there. I'll tell you what it reminds me of is bit, and it's there's a Mark Ruffalo film from 2019 called Dark Waters where he plays this lawyer going after like I think it's an oil company and like to pollution, and it takes years, and like you just see the effect it has on his like career and his personal life, just like, and like by the time they eventually like get some kind of win against them, was it worth it? It's that kind of yeah, you've won, but at what price?
Oh, well, yeah, man, that's yeah. I mean, Perry Mason's not quite that dark. Like, you get the feeling that he's like that he's growing stronger as an attorney with every case, but at the same time, you're just like, fuck, man, like that's had a toll on everybody. It's brutal. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
If you're a fan of the courtroom dramas, then I have to recommend to you, which was from the film one we did, Anatomy of the Fall, because it's the best courtroom drama I've ever seen. I mean,
that's a big thing for you to say there, and I'm into it. I will give it a shot.
Yeah,
when I feel like I want to watch a French language.
2.5 hours of French courtroom drama.
Hey,
but it has Pimp in it by 50 Cent at the start. And so, Jose, what do you have in a blinding segue at number 9? So from one courtroom to another, Jose.
Oh, there we go. You're much smarter. My number 9 is a show literally called Jury Duty. And it's really interesting to explain because the premise is kind of hidden for depending on what kind of marketing you've seen. But
I think everyone knows this one, Jose.
All right,
I think everyone knows what the twist is now in it.
No, but I'm just saying
I haven't seen it.
I don't know. Yeah, I was going to say I don't know. So everyone, two of the other people that haven't seen the show.
It's a So the overall premise is a reality show where this man goes to jury duty. He gets picked as one of the jurors, but he didn't realize that he's the only person that's real. Everyone else is an actor, and one of the.
Yes.
Yeah, James Marsden.
It's got the original X-Men Cyclops in it, right?
James Marsden, who gets knocked down a couple pegs because the guy doesn't even recognize him from that. And what's interesting is James Marsden is the most obvious, but there's actually 2 other guys who are kind of well known. Pat McCurdy, and then a comedian named Noah Price is also on there, but they're really somewhat middle tier celebrities, I guess. I don't know. Pat McCurdy has been on TV on big shows, but I just don't know the shows that he's been on. Everybody is a improv actor, and basically it's on this streaming site called Freevee, which is
an Amazon offshoot, isn't it? Yeah, in the UK it's Amazon but with adverts for free.
Yeah,
which put me off watching it because it's like I don't want to watch fuck you adverts.
Yeah, goddamn commercials. Get out of here, you bums.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny because like they go back in the behind the scenes video later on, but they talk about how a lot of times they would try to lead him up to doing things and saying things so that way they can pull off some pranks later. But in the first episode that he does it himself, where one of the actors, he's talking to him and he's like, "Hey, do you remember in Family Guy where to get out of jury duty he just says that he's racist?" And like they were like, did he really give us that in? Because one of the other actors was supposed to figure out a way to do that. And so the actor in front of everyone when he's being selected, he's like, I don't think I'm good for jury duty because I'm racist. And then he fully backtracks. And then you just see the reaction from the guy. He being like, did he really say that?
Amazing.
Yeah. So, but like there's lots of moments where it just really shows this guy's a good character. And he interacts with the improv actors really well. And there's some things I don't want to give away because it's really funny to see being pulled off. James Marsden really humbles himself to play a guy who is probably more egotistical than he really is. And he says that in later interviews that a lot of times they would have ear mics or earpieces to know what's going on, but he just went full improv.
Now, see, I haven't seen this yet, Jose, and I was kind of like, because of the whole Freeview thing. It was actually one of my biggest reasons for not getting around and watching it. But I've just been looking it up, and it's created by Lee Eisenberg and Gene Stupnitsky. They're the guys who did The American Office for quite a few years, and Parks and Rec as well.
So, that's where he's from, Parks and Rec, that other guy.
Yeah.
Is this sort of like a prank show, then?
Yeah, it's a prank show, but it's a whole series, right?
It's not a prank show per se. Like, they just trying to weird this guy out to where he's like, is this really happening? because a lot of times they would admit that the whole setup of the jury duty, they'd go through an entire day where most of it was just stuff they would never really show, but then like 5 minutes of it is really weird, because there's like one part where one of the defending lawyers has to play a slideshow, but it doesn't work. So then the next day he brings in a slideshow that his 10-year-old cousin made, and it's like jaggedy 3D renderings, and it's just hilarious to see that everyone's trying to take this 3D rendering seriously when it's like supposedly made from a 10-year-old.
This sounds like
It's
a
just-
show you need to watch to get. I think
It is, yes.
Yeah.
I, from what I read about it as well, people said the reason it was such a success and worked so well is that the main guy, Ronald Gladden, who's like the only non-actor in it, they said he was just a really good person. Like he was like really morally strong, and like he did everything. You know, he's like a really perfect example of someone you would want to be on a jury. So they said if the person hadn't been, then the show would definitely not have worked as well. But the fact they had someone, apparently he's got an agent himself now, and he's thinking about becoming an actor purely because he's been involved in that kind of thing. And obviously he's got his name is his brand now, isn't it? From that.
Yes, sir.
Surely he didn't know he was in that kind of thing.
Well, here's the thing.
Like,
Here's
so
the
I
thing.
was like, well, how could... Okay.
The premise to kind of get away with the cameras and everything is that he lives in California. This is LA basically, and he answered what's that website where people basically just put ads out? Craigslist. He answers a Craigslist ad saying, "Hey, we're doing a documentary. We need people to sign up to be jurors to be in this documentary." So that way they get past the whole, "Hey, you can get me on camera" thing. Because there are literally moments where he's on being interviewed talking about the day.
And at number 9, I have on my list a show that I've watched 3 times this year from start to finish. Disney Plus's first UK original production, Extraordinary. And we've done episodes on this as well earlier in the year. And it's based around the premise that everyone gets superpowers when they're 18, except for our main character, Jen, played by a young Irish actress, Mairead Tyers. She lives with her best friend, Carrie, who can channel the dead, her boyfriend, Cash, who wants to start his own superhero gang, and he can only turn back time, but only by a few minutes. And then, of course, who can forget the shape-shifting character, Jizzlord, a man who's been a cat for quite a few years and has clearly forgotten how to human. On the surface, you go, oh no, it's another superhero show. Bored of those now. But this feels like a British Channel 4 E4 sitcom that we used to get like in the mid-2000s. You know, it's a flat share show rather than a superhero show. The superhero stuff is just like sprinkling on it. It would still be really funny with these characters living together, getting into like scrapes every episode without all that on top of it. Obviously, it wouldn't work for that, but you know, the characters are so well drawn. That's what brings you into the show. I mean, one thing that obviously makes it more of a sitcom than a superhero show is there's no villain to defeat. There's no big character arc. It's just the main characters, really. It's all internal. It's like, it's about her insecurities about not having powers, or does she actually want powers? Because as you see, where a lot of people have them, they're not actually that great. That's what I love about the show. It just makes powers a bit shit.
This show's also on my list, and it feels like fresh meat with superhero powers. If you guys ever watched Fresh Meat,
I
did not.
Yeah, I was getting Misfits vibes when Neil was talking about it.
Yeah. Or Misfits. That's a good shout. But yeah, this is higher up on my list as well, Neil. And it's the one show that I'm glad that you introduced me to this year.
Only the one.
The one, yeah.
Well, I mean, all 4 of the actors in it were relatively unknown, and there's just some amazing physical performance in it. Like Luke Rollerson, who plays Jizzlord, like he is a cat. Like he's how much training he must have done to like watching cats and how they move and that. Like, you know, there'll be a frame and he'll just like creep up into the frame and like look at something like a cat would when it's like stalking something. Sophia Oxenham, who plays Carrie, again, she's so good in it. Her powers channeling the dead. So you think, oh, that'd be really cool. But no, she works for a shit lawyer's firm in this.
The emotional weight as well that power brings to the show. And it takes you from like the comedic highs of it to real like quite dark lows of what that power
can bring. She channels Hitler in the very first episode just to take the piss out of him. I mean, that's superb. That's just like, oh, let's channel Hitler. Do you want to take the piss out of Hitler? Okay, let's take the piss out of Hitler. And yeah, but like I say, the voices and like the body language and the way she changes physical performance is amazing. I mean, the pace of the show is great as well, and it's shockingly funny at places, man. I mean, and also it's got an amazing soundtrack. I always moan that like there's no sort of really good new like rock and indie music, and this show, I was just watching it going, I've never heard of any of these bands. Well, I think we put a comment out online about how great the soundtrack is, and only the show's editor Dan Grinion commented underneath. Was like, oh well, if you want to talk more about the soundtrack and the making of the show, I was like, yes, I do. And we had Dan on as our first sort of major guest this year, and it's not often you get an Emmy-nominated editor on the podcast, and he come on and we spoke for almost, I think it was about an hour 40 about his career as an editor and how he got in the industry, and then of course more specifically about how he worked on Killing Eve and Extraordinary. So the show was brilliant enough, but also getting someone from the show on the podcast, I'm going to be that guy who pushes it higher, just because to get to speak to someone who worked on it and get all like the behind the scenes stories on it. And if you want to hear that, you can actually, it's on our feed. It's episode 64, which was our spoiler special where we all talked about what we loved about the show. Then we had Dan's interview, and then we also talked about where we want to see season 2 going. And I think season 2 is going to be out fairly soon in the UK, because I know it's wrapped. I know they've been editing for a few months. Hopefully that'll be out quite soon.
Do you think they'll have a bigger budget?
I don't think it needs one, to be fair. I think it worked as well as it was.
It's not the sort of show that, like, it's not like a superhero show that needs a massive budget.
No.
Like one of the superpowers is to be able to 3D print stuff from
your butt.
From your butt.
Yeah,
like it's a 3D printing anus. That's the sort of level of, superpowers we're working with this show.
And I think that's a good place to leave it there, David, on 3D printing anus. What do you have at your number 8?
My number 8 is, again, it's another Faller, Neil, so apologies.
Ooh.
It is The Fall of the House of Usher. It fell from number 7 on my list to number 8. And it is, Mike Flanagan's new Netflix horror TV show. I mean, ultimately, I was a little bit disappointed by The Fall of the House of Usher overall, because I freaking love Mike Flanagan. I think everything the man touches is gold in terms of horror TV at the moment.
I mean, he has got a restraining order against you now, hasn't he?
And I've stalked him one too many times. But Fall of the House of Usher, I still felt was just, it was still good enough to make it into my top 10 for the year. Yeah, the only thing that I really I didn't particularly like about this show is that it took that Succession horror level of it.
It was horror Succession.
Horror Succession. And the issue with Succession is there's not a single likable character really in that show. And The Fall of the House of Usher is very similar. There's no one that you're there that you're like, oh, that guy's okay. Everyone's a piece of shit. And they all deserve everything they get to them. Like these fucking horrible deaths in particular different ways, like acid baths, acid rain. We got beaten up by a monkey. We got falling over a balcony,
got a bit of glass,
cat, little bit of glass, a little bit of glass stabbing,
a little bit of glass,
little bit of suicide by trying to get someone's heart beating. There's fucking all the deaths in it, but because these characters are such pieces of shit, you kind of want to see them die in the really gruesome ways. And aside from the acid rain, you kind of don't really see any of it, and that was a little disappointing. I kind of want to see real bloody guts and gore in this one, but it's not like that at all.
Well, as we mentioned a few episodes back when we did a bit on Full House of Usher on a spoiler podcast, and I think the problem with it is Flanagan was checked out. Like Netflix wanted him to be their horror guy. Right, you make us a 10-episode series every year, and he was like, right, but it feels like he does one for him, one for them. So like Haunting of Hill House was the one for him. Right, we want another Haunting of show based on classic literature next year.
Blind Manor was good though. Blind Manor was really good. It was good.
It wasn't. We disagree on this, David. Then he does Midnight Mass, which is absolutely amazing. And for me,
you didn't like Midnight Mass when we reviewed it.
No, I didn't like one thing about Midnight Mass, but overall I thought it was superb. And then we had a massive argument that went on for about half an hour about this one scene, which I'm sure you can find on our Midnight Mass spoiler special. Arguably for me, this show, it started weakly, but then I thought it got stronger and stronger as it went on. I thought the actors were superb in it, and I loved the last 2 episodes.
Bruce Greenwood's fucking phenomenal as Roderick Usher.
Yeah. And he was a last-minute replacement as well for Frank Langella. So literally, like, everyone else had filmed a bunch of this stuff, and then he turned up on set.
The only other thing is that, I know you touched upon it when we reviewed the episode, is that Flanagan's style is becoming a little bit predictable in how he's going to build up the jumps and even like some of the twists that are coming into the show. You can see them coming quite early on now.
And I think he kind of gets around that. Because usually in like one of his shows, there'd be like the flash of the ghost, and you'd be like, ah, and you shit yourself. And he's done that a million times. But in this one, he shows you the ghost straight away, and it's slow, long, lingering shots. And he's trying to do something different. But hey, I'm just happy he's moving over to Amazon now, and he's working on Stephen King adaptations. So hey, there you go. I think you'll be in love with Flanagan all over again, David.
I don't know, because Stephen King's one of those. I've never actually enjoyed any of Stephen King's books, if I'm honest. I'm not a massive.
I wonder if
King
Flanagan's
fan.
going to like work with him on changing the endings or making the endings better, because that's kind of like one of the common things about King's work is that he can't stick the ending on a lot of his.
Pet Sematary had a fucking fantastic. I mean, to be fair, I've only ever read like 4 or 5 of his books.
I was about to say, yeah, the original Pet Sematary book
Pet
had a great
Sematry's
ending until they
ending,
changed it in that
fucking
piece of
awesome.
shit that came out the other year.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, we've got a
darling.
brilliant ending. Let's just change it. No. Anyway, moving on to Ben's number 8, which is.
You do not mess with the special investigators. It's Reacher season 2.
Ooh.
I am a massive fan of the books. My nan got me into these books. Funny enough, it was weird. So Neil's mum was in theme of my last choice, and my nan is in theme. Am I getting old for my time, guys? You can be honest with me.
Back to punching and killing days.
Yeah,
Ben.
I've gone
Punching and
from Ted Lasso at number 10, which was all heart, to like the biggest, meanest motherfucker on the block of Jack Reacher. Season 1 was fucking brilliant. Everyone I know who I recommended it to thought it was brilliant. And this season, I put this on my list before this season came out, and I'm vindicated. I think it's brilliant so far.
Oh, did you get to watch the entire season?
I've watched. It's one a week. They dropped the first 3 last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was.
So we're up to 5 now, right?
So this week will be number 5.
Excellent.
And it's only 8 episodes, I think. So it's it's just great. They stick really closely to the books. They have Lee Child is on board, the author, and he's on board, and he does a lot of the work on actually bringing this thing to the screen. Lots of the criticism that I've found about this season are that Jack Reacher is in a team, but when you read the books, it's like this isn't the second book in the series. They started with the first book, and they've had to skip a couple of books because they did. Tom Cruise did a couple of movies that weren't all that very good.
I would disagree.
Well representative of the character, I think. I don't think Tom Cruise was the right person to play.
It's too short, damn it.
He's not like a ridiculous fucking
he's not a brooding tall
who doesn't
tree trunk of a man.
They had to punch up the all of the dialogue for it, and so I think that Alan Richardson is exactly the right person to play Reacher, and I think for an actor of his ilk with a lot of bit parts and stuff like he was in the last Fast and Furious movie and stuff like that, but he's never really got to stretch his legs, and I think that this role is bang on for him to springboard into other things and do something great as well. But so far, I am all in on season 2 of Jack Reacher. I love it, and if I didn't know better, I'd say that David had something to say.
The only question I had was: is the book series ongoing?
Yes.
So it's a continual. Okay.
So much so that at this point now, if I've read this rightly, Lee Child's not actually writing them; he's handed them over to his brother.
Correct. Yeah. He co-wrote a couple with his brother, and now his brother's just taken over, and he's taken over the series, and he's doing the whole thing. And they're pretty much the same. There's some obvious differences.
I've read. I think I've read the first 3 or 4 back to back.
How many are there? What are we at?
Oh God, I don't know. I must be 20 by now.
14 or 15, maybe more.
It's up there. It's in the teens for sure.
Oh wow!
I just kind of the problem. I think I think the reason they went to the team aspect for season 2 was because the first however many books follows a very similar pattern.
Yeah,
and that he wanders into a town, shit goes down, and then he beats everyone up, then he leaves.
Yeah,
and that was season 1, and they did it superbly. And I think they wanted to put some reoccurring characters in it, so that this will be season 2, which is what we're watching in a minute, where he's, like you say, the setup of season 2 is someone's killing off members of his former team, and you don't mess with the special investigators.
No.
And then I think season 3 will be back to him somewhere else killing people and then leaving.
Which they've already greenlit.
Yeah,
And it's
I mean,
it's being filmed like right now. Like they've gone.
well, it's filmed on the cheap up in Canada, right? So that always makes me laugh. Like season 1 was supposed to be in Atlanta, I think, and they're like, "Yeah, we're freezing our asses off out here, like,
yeah.
like walking around in
With
Canada in November."
You get a massive tax break for filming in Atlanta, and every movie at the end of it, if you watch the credits, says like special thanks to the Atlanta Film Board, and there's like the peach logo.
Yeah.
So it's super cheap to film in Atlanta, so they went to Canada anyway. So fuck Atlanta. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I guess Amazon's got a problem with it.
so with books like that, there's always like one underlying story that crosses all of the books, correct? And what
This
is
just
that?
says nothing.
What
This
is that
doesn't have it.
within?
This doesn't have it. There's no story arc. It's just like it's kind of like samurai, like a Ronin character who like he just wanders around. His whole thing is like he spent
Punching people really hard.
he's spent his entire life in the military, and he's been told where to go and what to do for his entire life. So he now wants to travel America, like, and see the country that he defended all those years on his own terms. So he doesn't have a place to live. He just he has his like army pension wired to him at whatever Western Union credit place he happens to be at. He has a toothbrush in his pocket, and he stays in B&Bs or motels or whatever, and rides the Greyhound bus all across America wherever he wants to go. So it's got like a wandering vagrant, like I say, Ronin kind of story, and he's got he's kind of he's a bit of a soft touch. He doesn't like to get involved, but he goes around helping people that are in the shit. So it just I like it. I like it a lot.
I'm also a big fan of Alan Ritchson because of a show he did back in 2010 called Blue Mountain State.
I have seen that, Jose.
That's been advertised like
amazing.
mad on Amazon right now because he's like obviously linked to the
Yeah. He's actually not even the main character. He's a side character who's a bit of a foil to the show. And I think his name is
Tad.
Thad.
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 It was something
Thad.
dumb.
Thad.
Well, he's supposed to be a dumb character, but if you are a fan of the show, you realize that he gets his own little mini arc out of that. So that's all I'm going to say, because you have to watch the show. And what's interesting is 3 seasons, and the first season or 2 are pretty solid. The third season, you can tell they were probably struggling to stay on, but it's because they go through characters really, really quickly. Surprisingly, I think it's mostly just the casting of the actors had issues. But
when I first saw that show, man, his character immediately reminded me of like this generation Stifler. That's what he was. He was like Stifler in it.
Yes, you're right.
Did you guys ever see him in? Did you guys ever see him in New Girl? He played like Jess's, like he dated Jess.
I missed that.
He played a guy with a micro penis, and it was fucking hilarious.
Oh my god,
he's such a fucking jacked like jock dude. But like you can tell, like he's got this thing where he doesn't take himself too seriously. He's actually bipolar as well, and he was about that.
He's a very honestly nice seeming guy, and I hope the best for him. That's why. Also, fun fact: he played one of the Ninja Turtles in the 2014 movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Mikey.
Right.
Well, moving on. Jose, what do we have at your number 8?
I have a show called Gen V, a spin-off of The Boys, which I honestly was not expecting to like as much as I did. And I think it's because of the way that The Boys have done such a great job of world building that it's not necessarily just about the characters, but the world is its own character, because it really takes a jab at our world, how we fetishize celebrities and on how it's all about image. And it kind of takes that into this college situation now, which it doesn't really connect any of the characters, or it doesn't need to be connected to any of the characters, but it does in a little bit throughout the show. The premise is the college is called Godolkin University, and they shorten it up for conveniently named God U. So, and it just basically goes across a cast that I personally have not heard of, except for one guy who's the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I hate to say it like that, but Patrick Schwarzenegger. His character is interesting, and I don't want to give away even anything about him, because the show is honestly really good. It does a really good job of bringing in new talent and creating a whole scenario with them, and using different powers that honestly are really interesting, because you think, oh, we've used up a lot of powers for The Boys, so what can we do now? And then here comes this Gen V show.
In a way, Jose, this is like the really super dark version of Extraordinary. You got people at college.
Holy shit.
and
You
it
are
just goes
so right.
really super dark. Like, and they're like, oh, what
Yes.
powers? Oh, we can turn back time. Okay, but if it was done in this and you could turn back time, it'd probably strip all the skin from someone's bones or
Oh
something
my
like that.
god, yeah.
It's just-
Yeah, I really enjoyed the show as well, Jose. This is higher up on my list. And like for yourself as well. I didn't fucking realize Golden Boy was Schwarzenegger's son.
Yeah.
You've just said that, and I looked and I was like, holy shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's an interesting surprise. I know. Honestly, he does a good job. He probably not the best, but I think for what he was trying to do, I think he did a good job. You know,
he has an impact on the show for a little screen time. Let's put it that way, without trying to spoil shit.
I mean, I think the biggest star of it, the far and away the best character for me, was Lizzie Broadway, who plays Emma, like the shrinking and large girl. She was
the scene where she's pleasuring that guy as a tiny. Oh my god, I creased up so.
For the record, this is not a family show, not at all.
Oh no! If anyone's seen The Boys, where they quite literally, shrink and go inside someone's dick and blow it up from the inside, no, it's not a family show.
What's interesting is the character Jordan Lee, played by two actors. I thought that was an interesting twist on the ability to have morphing powers.
Like the shrinking girl's ability in itself, like it's like the little twist on it where she has to vomit to shrink in the first place.
What I would say is what the show does really well, and I heard that there was a spoiler interview podcast with Lizzie Broadway and one of the creators of the show that I listened to, and every one of their powers is tied into something horrific to do with growing up.
Oh yeah, I forgot Jazz Sinclair, who plays Marie Monroe. I didn't even realize it until they said the disclaimers, like, oh, there's going to be cutting in this show, and I'm like, oh, because she has to get to her blood. Yeah.
So there's a lot of self-harm, and it's a lot of that's what year do women get their periods? It's all relevant.
The dual identities of Jordan Lee, the male and the female, dealing with the whole
gender identity.
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
a really good.
It's a good show.
It's really well written, because I think if it was written poorly, it would feel like they're just ticking boxes, and it doesn't feel like that.
No.
The characters are really well written.
I feel like more importantly, they don't laser focus on that stuff. It's like you're looking at the characters, and their superpowers are kind of like off to one side, and which makes those pointed references of growing up a byproduct of the character, not a focal point of the show, which is why it works so well for me.
No, I was going to say is to Jose, when he was mentioning the broader universe of The Boys, one thing that didn't ever really make sense to me was why they fucking recruited Starlight when they had this university there to recruit from in the first place. So you've got all this pool of the best superheroes that are in this one location. Why go and recruit
She had
Starlight?
so many millions of followers online and stuff, so she was actually she was super popular.
She went through that whole system,
she
right?
Wasn't though, was she? She wasn't very well known. She didn't have that.
No, I thought that she did after she saved those. She saved that guy. There was something in one of the episodes where she does something.
But that was after she'd already been recruited into the Boys. So that was after she into the Seven. Sorry, so after she was already in the Seven.
Yeah.
So she was recruited based off just like a video interview. I'm Starlight, and then she got pushed into the Seven.
They probably done their research, man.
I mean, there is a little bit of. I think there's a little bit of retconning going on, but I think it's just subtle enough to where
they're going to tie it all together, aren't they? I've heard that season 4 of The Boys takes place a matter of weeks after the finale of Gen V season 1, and there is going to be crossovers. Is what they're planning.
Yeah, okay. I'm excited for that. And I actually heard that the creator said originally they were only thinking of a small number of seasons for The Boys, but now that you've seen the success, he's like, I'm not going to hold back.
Well, so I've read all the graphic novels of The Boys, and we're not even halfway to where the story ultimately ended.
They've already changed things, haven't they? With Black Noir,
they have changed some stuff, like with Black Noir and things like that. But ultimately, I think they're going to have to get to the same place, and I can't wait to see them do it, because people are going to lose their shit when they get to the ending if they don't change it too much from the original. And on my number 8, I have got a show about a dog with wheels.
Hey.
And that show is called Colin from Accounts. And it's a half-an-hour Aussie comedy drama.
I thought it was Paw Patrol.
It's a bit better than Paw Patrol, a bit more nudity and a bit more bad language.
Oh, nudity.
Paw Patrol.
Mate, you ain't seen Paw Patrol in a while, have you? They've really come X-rated.
So this show stars husband and wife team Patrick Bramall as Gordon and Harriet Dyer as Ashley, and they have this unexpected meet cute that results in a small dog being massively, permanently injured. Ashley's a junior doctor and Gordon owns a brewery, and he's maybe 10 years older than her, and so a lot of the comedy comes from their age gap as well. For example, there's an episode where we meet her friends on her birthday, and he has them all down to his bar, and they're just utter horrific millennial stereotype twats, and he's just getting more and more hacked off at them. But what I like about the show is the characters seem, although it's like obviously a heightened comedy, they're not like Rex, you know, like they've got the things that aren't going well in their lives, but at the same time, she's a junior doctor training up. He's like, you know, runs his own brewery, but then, you know, there's like, you know, you'll see that she doesn't actually have anywhere to live properly. He is like addicted to online poker and drinking late at night and like all this kind of stuff. And it's the dog the whole way they meet in the first episode is he's like driving and then she crosses the road, he stops to let her cross and she flashes him for thanking him to let her through. And so he drives off dazed and runs into the dog. He's like, "Oh, you flasher, get back here. What are we going to do about this dog?"
No.
Okay.
Right, it's on the iPlayer. It's only 6 episodes.
Ooh.
It is really funny. It's one of the best. You know, when you say like romantic comedy, it kind of has that stigma to it. But the characters, the main two, are so well written in it. Obviously, probably helps that they're like a married couple in real life for the comedy to come from it.
Perfect.
But you know, there's really good support characters. His friends who work at the brewery with him. He's got a best friend called Brett, who's this big Aboriginal guy who's just really funny. He's hilarious. And then you got Ashley's best friend at the hospital, who's this like other junior doctor who's just a pill popping off her face all the time, called Megan. It doesn't pass judgment on these characters doing these things. That's what I like about it. They're not bad characters for doing this. It's just they're doing the shit they need to do to get through the day. The show just feels relatable and real. Yes, the characters are flawed, and that's what I like. Is in some ways the show will do stuff where they come across as unlikable, and you don't see that in many sort of standard. I'd say it was a good counterpoint to this, Jose. Platonic.
Yes.
This is like the other side of the coin. If it was better written and more like realistic.
Shots fired.
No. I liked Platonic. I thought it was a good show. This is better. And like I say, if you're wondering who Colin is, he is the dog who has wheels for legs. And
Gotcha.
like I say, it's that situation that brings them together. He's like, well, I can't look after him. Well, I can't look after him. Okay, well, the dog's going to be put down. Also, the vet in the show that they take him to is one of Gordon's ex, and her name is Yvette. Yvette the vet. That's the level of like brilliant writing you're dealing with in the show, man. So yeah, Colin from Accounts, season 2 has been commissioned, and hopefully we get it soon rather than later. So now we move on to number 7. And David, what do you have for your number 7?
This is the newest entry on the list, which was...
I'm going to make a new entry in your head in a minute. If you keep changing the list.
Which might be a little bit of recency bias here, because it's the last show I've watched. But Yu Yu Hakusho, which is on Netflix at the moment. And I really enjoyed this show. It's only got 5 episodes. I started watching it, and when you start watching the show, it starts off in the English dub. And I was like, fucking hell, this is shit.
Change it to subtitles or with subtitles.
Yeah, and then you change it to Japanese original, and I got really into it. So it's about there's 3 different planes. There's the demon world, there is the human world, and then there's the spirit world. And the spirit world is there to basically protect the human world from the demon world. And then there's a bad guy in it that's trying to bring the demon world and the human world together so the demons and humans coexist. And the spirit world's trying to stop that. A teenage boy dies really early on in the show, so it's not really a spoiler. And he is resurrected, and he becomes a spirit investigator, I think.
Are you reading the Wikipedia for the right show here, David?
Where it
Sounds
is...
like R.I.P.D.
I know, right? I was going to say the same thing.
I think it's a spirit investigator, and he has to go around basically stopping demons being in the world. Anyway, I just really enjoyed it. I'm a big sucker. It was an anime and a manga from 1992.
I was about to say, I'm glad you cleared up, because I didn't know whether this was animation or live action until you just said that.
Yeah, so this is a live action adaptation of an anime that was out in 1992, and the manga was probably even older.
Oh, so this is live action.
Yes, yeah, this is live action, yeah. Sorry. Maybe I should have clarified that earlier. But some of the effects in it are really good. Like some of the demons, like
okay.
Funny. But it's that perfect blend of Japanese weirdness, where you've got like characters that just become like foxes or something. Like that's
nice.
the power, or something, or then there's something else that happens, and it's just a bit like there's a character that's got a dummy, just for no, like I don't know why they have a dummy. They just walk around with a dummy in their mouth. At least I assume it's a dummy, unless there's something cultural in Japan that I don't know about, and that's just really insulting. But it looks like a dummy.
I would wager that there is a lot of cultural things in Japan that you're not aware of.
Oh, 100%. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is a dummy.
And that's David's recommendation at number 7.
But
What's the show called again, David?
It's Yu Yu.
I love the premise of it. I think it sounds wicked. I've never heard of it, but I love the premise of it. I think it sounds absolutely phenomenal.
I'm a big sucker for glory moments, and I'm a big. This is the best live
glory holes.
Live. Oh man, that was awful. Live adaptation. So I was a big fan of Dragon Ball Z, like in Dragon Ball as a kid, and this felt the most like a live action version of Dragon Ball.
Oh wow!
Where you've got like that glory, you get like really big glory moments in shows, and there's like the whole like I must fight at 100%. This is the first time I've ever had to fight at 100% and stuff like that. It's just fucking. I love that sort of shit. I'm a big.
There was a massive glory moment in season 5 for Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well.
Hey.
For people who remember, which clearly was only Ben.
That was very clever.
That is a massive throwback.
Okay, so Ben, what do you have on your list at number 7?
Oh, number 7. This was the finest video games adaptation of all time up to this point, and it was The Last of Us. Like standout performances by just about every single major player in the cast. I mean, can Pedro Pascal do any wrong at the moment? Probably not. If you've got him playing some sort of like father figure, you're onto a winner. I mean,
or possibly the leader of a 4-person team,
or possibly the leader of a 4-person team.
I saw a tweet that said, in years to come, all shows will be Pedro Pascal escorting magical children.
I mean, that's akin to Demolition Man, where all restaurants are Taco Bell because they're the only ones that survived the war.
Right.
The franchise wars.
The franchise wars. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, all right, all TV shows will be Pedro Pascal in somewhere or another.
And no one's mad at that.
No one is. But then you've got like Pedro Pascal throwing it down. Everyone's like, my God, he's so good. And then Bella Ramsey comes along and just trounces him. Like she's like, oh, you think that's acting? Check this shit out. And she slays, absolutely slays.
I think we all knew she was going to be amazing when she had her first appearance in Game of Thrones.
Oh,
last year was Game of Thrones.
Played the child queen of wherever it was in the middle of. David, help me out.
She plays Leanna Mormont. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So she's. But there was also some awesome moments. Like Anna Torv is in it, and I've been
Fringe.
I was a fan of Fringe since day one. I love that show so much.
Yeah, man.
And she was great in it, and it was lovely to see her in this. And then one of the highlights was the episode with Nick Offerman, where
that's such a good episode. Yeah,
you get backstory on a part of a video. Like you get backstory on part of a video game that never got backstory, from what I've been told, because I never played the game. So
that's just a note. It's a note in the game. That's all it is. It's 2 notes that you find. Just the collectibles. It's a collectible in the game that you just find, just strewn about. Nothing to do with the game at all. That episode.
Amazing.
So good. Yeah.
And they drew just on that tiny moment to put across this beautiful story about how Nick Offerman's character falls in love and has this amazing relationship within the apocalypse. It's
my favorite episode of the entire show.
That was a lot of people's best hour of TV last year, just hands down. Yeah. And that's what I said. That's what makes the show so good. Is it would almost be classed as a throwaway episode where it doesn't move the plot forward. It doesn't tell you anything. Yeah. But it's just this brilliant hour-long drama about people finding each other during the apocalypse.
Oh, I loved it.
And like I say, it's Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett, who I think he's an Aussie actor who's been quite well known over there for a while. And he came to prominence in the first series of The White Lotus, playing the drug-addicted, sex-addicted, crazy manager. Wow. And then he comes into it, and it's Frank and Bill. That's who they play.
That's it.
In this show. And man, just seeing their relationship play out over the years in the show of the Showtime was amazing. Although a show did a very similar thing to that years ago. I remember a show called The Magicians.
Oh, I've heard of it, but I never watched it.
Oh yeah, I watched that. Yeah, God, that was.
And there's an episode where 2 of the characters have a relationship very similar, and because it's all can do with magic. But so this one episode is kind of what if they got stuck here and just lived together for their whole lives, and then at the end of it, when like the
Hey, no
characters die.
spoilers. I want to watch.
Basically show that it's not connected to the. I'm sure it's like a kind of
Okay,
what if
okay.
almost thing. But they do that exact same stuff. And I was watching this going, this is the episode of Magicians I saw. But obviously it's done much better.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want to harp on too much about it. Is this on anybody else's list, by the way?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
That's why
high.
I'm
on
harping
mine.
on about it now.
It's
Excellent.
really high.
Good.
on mine.
Good. All right. So in that case, I think the reason that it was such a success is that the guy that wrote the video game was directly responsible for bringing it to the screen.
Yeah,
And I
Neil
think that was-
Druckmann.
Yeah, and I think that was one of his caveats. He said, "Yes, you can do it, but I'm doing it." And
Ooh.
that's why it was so well put together. And it touched on important parts that he didn't get the opportunity to draw out in the game, which is just fantastic. I mean, there's not many shows where you can do something along the lines of what happens to Pedro Pascal, and have
Yeah,
the story evolve as quickly and as well and as succinctly. Like it's just brilliant. I mean, it's been that story has been done to death. Like the guy, I hate kids, and then I have to hang out with kids, and then now I like kids again. It's like I just watched Jurassic Park with my girlfriend. I'm like, yep, that's the same story, and it's like
It's the creator. as well.
Creator, yeah, exactly. My favorite movie of this year. So of 2023, should I say?
Are you a fan of the games? I mean, I know you said. Did you say you hadn't played the games?
I hadn't played the games.
Are
I
you
haven't
a
played any of the
gamer?
games. I'm not.
I've never
Not
played
at
any
all.
games, no.
No,
It's
okay,
actually
yeah.
surprising the way you talk about it because you really seem like you did, and you love how they translated it.
I mean, I just love the show for what it is, and I feel like I would enjoy the games now because of the show.
Both
I think
games are like some of the best games you'll ever play,
Really,
like ever. They're genuinely both fantastic video games. So the fact that the show was able to adapt such a good popular video game and do it so well it's almost like how they managed.
I think it comes to Ben's point, which is like say Neil Druckmann saying,
Was
"Look, we're
involved
going
in
to do
it,
it.
yeah.
I'm going to do it." But then it's who he picked. He went and picked Craig Mazin, who and the production team behind Chernobyl.
oh
mate.
wow.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you've got the writer of
Totally, that
work-
makes so much sense. Instantly, now I'm like, oh, of course they did. Yeah, God, yeah.
Well, what is the best miniseries of the last decade on a lot of people's list? Oh, it's Chernobyl. Right, I want the guy who did that to do The Last of Us.
Yeah, man.
What again? I think, like I say, this is a show that took its time to get to the expected set pieces from the game, but it always delivered. And like you said, filling in the backstory and like you said earlier, David, a note suddenly becomes an hour episode. I think for a lot of people, it wasn't the draw of seeing the clickers or the big action set pieces. It was the character work and the way the relationship between Ellie and Joel
Yeah.
progressed because of the amazing work by Ramsey and Pascal in it. You know, you love exploring the world of the game on screen and all the side stories. And I mean, I like I say, the Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett episode, Frank Bill, that is going to win awards this year. There's no way
I
that
hope
doesn't get
so.
something at the Emmys. It should do. It's a
Definitely.
beautiful piece of TV, man. It's one of the best hours of TV that year. Oh, I've got guest stars. Melanie Linsky from Yellow Jackets just rocking up. Still kind of play that suburban mum role, but with a twist.
Yeah.
There's
Oh.
they have all of the cameos for all the voice actors from the game are
Yep.
Yeah,
cameos.
Troy Baker gets to be a henchman in a later episode, and Ashley Johnson gets to play the mother of
Ellie. Yeah, and what would be really interesting for myself is for Ben, as you've not played the second game,
Mhm.
whether they stay faithful to how that, because that game made a very specific narrative choice, which was really controversial at the time,
Yes.
and it'll be really interesting to see if they follow that and
They have to.
people's reactions to it as well.
Do you think that the next season will be a bridging season between the two games? Because I heard that the two games are quite far apart time wise. Like
They are.
Do they? Because they don't like literally. You don't pick up game 2 doesn't pick up where game 1 left off, and you carry on from there. There's like a time gap.
That's a good question. It depends on
Interesting to find out.
and how they It will
there
be
must be a
interesting.
story,
It'll
I
be
mean, like-
interesting to see if they follow what the game does. Because like
well,
I
no,
said,
the
yeah,
big talk
controversial.
about season 2 is who they're going to cast as Abby, who's like a major new character who comes into
She's
the
already
game.
been cast, hasn't she?
I better say, and it's it's not 100%, but it looks like it's going to be Kathleen Dever, who is amazing as well. So I know some people have, because I haven't known much about the character, but the girl in the games is quite muscly and like hench and quite big. And they said that's not her, and she's like, well, you know, we're not making the show yet, so I feel like she's probably going to get like go to the gym and like turn into that character.
I think if they've cast that character, then it has to follow the second it has to follow the second game because it doesn't make
If
sense.
they're bringing
to cast
Abby
the
into
character.
they're gonna go
But I think there's only 2 games, right? So I it depends on successful. I hope they just do the second season and then they end it, right? Because there's no more games planned, right? So just tell the story and don't drag it out.
Is
Let
it
be this
possible
brilliant
that
thing?
season that the second game will be over 2 seasons though? Like, because it sounds like the second game is quite a lot bigger. So I don't know if it will be. I mean, I don't know how they're planning it, obviously, but like if you've got something that's successful, you might want to split it in 2.
Right, Jose. Moving on to your number 7, and what do we have?
Tonally, this is interestingly kind of connected. It's called Shrinking. Deals with a family man as well who has a daughter. So, in a way, it's kind of funny how we're lining these up. So it's also by Bill Lawrence. You mentioned before that he came on to help with this show.
He created this show.
Created this show.
Him and
Jason Segel
and Roy fucking Kent made this show.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Why did I think Jason Segel was more involved?
Because he's a writer of it as well. It's
is
literally
he?
the 3 of them. It's Bill Lawrence, Brett Goldenstein, and Jason Segel. All write this show and co-create it together.
Gotcha.
What happened to Jason Segel, man? I have not seen him in ages. He was everywhere in like the mid 2000s.
Oh, he took a break.
Every comedy.
He took a break. I saw some interviews when he was talking about the show. He just wanted to make sure he was doing something that he really enjoyed, especially after doing How I Met Your Mother. He was kind of riding off the success and just doing things a bit after that.
Fair play. He chose well. He chose wisely.
But I'm a really big fan of this show. Also because of the timing of it dealing with grieving. My mother passed away right before the show came out. So I was curious to see how it would kind of incorporate that. And I think it does a good job. It's still a little more comedic than I was expecting in terms of the grieving part. But the characters evolve pretty well. And Jason Segel is one of those talented guys where he can play kind of a douchebag, but a douchebag that you kind of like. So you never really hate him. You're like, oh man, come on, stop doing that kind of situation. And the cast of characters that come with him, especially with Bill Lawrence, will also bring his wife Krista Miller involved. Did that sentence make sense?
Yeah. And his wife is she played Jordan in Scrubs.
Yes, so kind of like a staple of great sarcastic humor. She's honestly a great addition to the cast.
So the premise of the show, Jose, is that basically Seagull's character is a therapist called Jimmy, and he's dealing with severe grief after the death of his wife. And he starts to kind of breach ethical barriers with his patients, telling his patients what he really thinks they should do, and it results in massive changes to his life and their lives. Also, like you say, cast. Well, how have we not mentioned Mr. Harrison Ford playing grumpy therapist? But he's fucking-tastic in his show.
Mm-hmm. It's a subtle play. Because he can eventually you see that he really cares about the rest of the characters / co-workers in the show. Jessica Williams as Gabby was a pretty nice surprise.
I've never heard of her before, and she was amazing in it. Man.
Yes, she was so funny, and the way she kind of just allows herself to be funny, bouncing off of everyone, even Harrison Ford was great. Heidi Gardner from SNL is a really fun addition. Yes. She was a great patient and had a larger arc than I expected. But honestly, a lot of his patients had larger arcs. Ted McGinley playing Derek is a personal favorite because he was on a show called Married with Children.
Married with Children.
And he is such a great actor. I don't know a lot of what he's done. But one guy who I had to let warm up to me was Michael Urie playing Brian, who was a gay friend. I felt like they kind of played up the stereotype a little bit, but eventually made him more three-dimensional. So it was a really good growth for his character. Like overall, a lot of the characters were really flat, but then throughout the season, they really filled them in and made them more human. So I think we did talk about this before, right?
I think so. I think we talked briefly about it. And it's one of these shows where it doesn't blow. I mean, I thought the trailers and promos were terrible. I was like, it's just someone bouncing on a trampoline. Fuck this. I'm not watching this. I was like, wait a minute. It's got Harrison Ford in it. Oh, wait, it's written by the guy who did Ted Lasso. Okay, I'll give it a go. And then the first episode is basically just you find Jason Segel at his like lowest point, where he's just being an absolute prick to everyone, his like daughter included. And I was kind of like, but I know what Bill Lawrence is going to do. I know it's going to be the start. You have to take him to the bottom so you can build him back up. And that's what this show is. It's him like reestablishing his links with his friends and his daughter and all these other people. And it's just it's a really good show, man. It gets you like as you're. It's you know what Bill Lawrence can do, so it's got that emotional hold on you. And once you're in with the show, he just takes you to all those places, man. Also, Neil Flynn, the janitor from Scrubs, is in it as well, playing one of the patients. And I was like, yes, janitor from Scrubs.
Oh, but
and
he only makes a small appearance. Welcome.
Doesn't matter, Jose. He's a janitor from Scrubs. I am waiting season 2 just to have just what's his name, Dr. Cox, just appear in it to be like that. He's got to come into it, man.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much they can do after season 2 because they did build up.
Without giving away any spoilers, season 1 literally ends on a cliffhanger. Like you've not seen a better definition of what a cliffhanger is than the end of season 1 of Shrinking, and you're just like,
someone's hanging off a cliff, aren't they?
Maybe, and it's not. And Sylvester Stallone's definitely not in this show.
Oh, good.
Oh man!
And moving on to my number 7, which is a show I think a few of us may be mentioning a little bit later, because bit low down on my list, maybe. And that is Star Trek: Strange New Worlds season 2.
Yes, sir.
Which I've just got the 4K DVD off for Christmas. Yay!
Product
Thanks,
placement.
people.
Bing, 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 bing.
And yes, if you order it from this link that we don't have, then I would get it, which I already have. So it doesn't really work out that way. Look, I really enjoyed season 1 of this Star Trek prequel, but season 2 just takes the show to a whole nother level. There's not one bad episode, not even one middling episode in this second series. They're all excellent.
Yep, 100%.
Well, I know you're gonna jump in on this in a minute, man.
Yep.
And what the show does brilliantly for me is that it manages to change its genre every episode. Episode 2, Ad Astra per Aspera, is a courtroom drama. It deals with immigration and laws about genetic modification. Episode 3, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, pairs up Leanne and a young James T. Kirk for a time travel story. Charades does the old-fashioned, what if an alien character was fully human? You know, how many Star Trek shows have you seen where there's a character who's half human and half something else? They do that in this one brilliantly. Those Old Scientists is a brilliant crossover with Star Trek's Lower Decks, and you get Jack Quaid's Boimler and Tawny Newsom's Mariner crossover into live action. You have a great little Easter egg between the two shows, on top of like combining an animated comedy with an hour-long show. But what they do is number 1 in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds is played by Rebecca Romijn, who is married to Jerry O'Connell, who is also the number 1 on Star Trek Lower Decks. So you literally have the 2 number 1s on 2 different shows are a married couple, and I was like, it's brilliant.
Is it Jack Ransom?
Jack Ransom.
Handsome Ransom.
There we go.
Under the Cloak of War reminded me of some classic Deep Space Nine as we get flashbacks to Dr. Mbenga's days as a war medic.
Ooh, that was
and
good.
It's such a spectacularly dark episode, man. And it's just an amazing performance by Babs Olusanmuken as Dr. Mbenga. And that, of course, takes us to Subspace Rhapsody, where Star Trek goes full musical. And yes, it is kind of like Buffy. And yes, they do have a Buffy reference with what's causing it. Well, is it bunnies? It's like, fucking yes.
Amazing.
These people know their audiences, man. But it does what Buffy does in that it exposes characters' feelings they'd rather have hidden by way of song. And also you have K-pop Klingons. And then, of course, you've got to the season 3 finale. And before that takes you to the season 2 finale, where the show brings back its main villain that is set up over the last 2 seasons, which is the Gorn.
They've made the Gorn such fucking badass, like alien-esque, like xenomorphs. Like it's so good.
Season 1. There's the episode that's basically just Alien, where they crash on a planet and there's one baby Gorn, and it's just fucking people shit up left, right, and center.
It's so good.
What's a Gorn?
It's like alien. Like if you look at the original series Star Trek, they were just like
lizard
people, like in suits, like in like really bad suits. But they
is this
Lower Deck?
Yeah. Is that the thing where the boulders throwing that's
it.
Throwing
That's the one.
I get. Oh, right,
Strange New Worlds is
know,
important to note that Strange New Worlds is set before the original series. It's the original crew of the Starship Enterprise, which is Captain Pike, who is one of James T. Kirk's like idols. So you're going through this what I like about this, because this is on my list as well, it is a villain of the week show, and we've started to run out of these. Like shows like Supergirl and The Flash, all the DC stuff, did this villain of the week, and they did it really well, and it gives you something to get your teeth into. It gives you like an hour of TV that like is a start point and a finish point. But then the series obviously has its over arc as well, which in this one is like the Gorn are going to be like the precursor to the Klingon War, or the Klingons being the main bad guys. And it's like Neil says, like they skip genre really, really well, and they handle things really, really classily. It's like a classy Star Trek that shouldn't be, has no right to be, because it's set, when before the original series, when all the sets were honky and everything was all kind of like, it doesn't fit together right, and there's they weave together like what you would expect to see the future looking like from our point of view now, but they weave it in with what the original series tells us that the future looks like in Star Trek, and it fits together really nicely. And they take the piss out of themselves when they need to, and they have like relevant plot points to sort of drive you in this direction of. I mean, like the first season, Captain Pike has like flashbacks or flash forwards about how he's going to end up, not how he dies, but how he ends up, because of Star Trek Discovery. And in the original series, everybody that is watching the original series knows how Christopher Pike ends up. So they already touch on it. They go, right, we know this terrible thing happens to this guy, or, maybe it's not a terrible thing. But they allude to it, and then they play within that box. They play within that sandpit, and they do it really, really well.
Yeah, I can't wait for season 3, man. We will definitely be doing a spoiler special on this show once I've devoured all the special features and learned everything I can about the second series of that show.
Since this is on my list as well, I actually binged the first and second series. I'm a big fan, and the funny thing is like I'm a fan of Star Trek in general, but I don't know much about where all this is pulling information from. And I can see that there's references to the original content, but I like that it's still easily something I can get into without having to know all that lore.
And David, you asked, I believe, what is a Star Trek earlier.
Well, hey, yeah. Star Trek's one of those things that I want to like and get into. I just haven't at any point in my life, and I feel like it's a big thing.
Space, man.
It's a big thing to get into.
I think you've got to pick the right thing. I mean, if you want to get into something, I would say Strange New Worlds is a really good jumping off point, and then go straight into something like Deep Space Nine or Voyager. Like depending on like how you like feel about like what Strange New Worlds does.
The only Star Trek I've ever watched is like just the Chris Pine films. I think that's literally.
Ooh, that's not bad either.
But I mean, like for people that know the rich tapestry of what sci-fi,
they're good. They're good. But
like, I think that you would enjoy. I think you specifically would enjoy Strange New Worlds because there's almost a fantasy element within it, and you don't have to look very deep to find like these kind of nuances and stuff. And I think you'd enjoy it.
You know what's also great about Strange New Worlds is that they're portrayed as regular people as well as officers. Yeah. It's not just them being on the ship, but also like on their downtime, they show them being in regular clothes for their time, which I thought that was a really nice little touch.
Yeah, agree.
Definitely. All right, David, what do you have at number 6?
At number 6, I need to open up my thing because I forgot it. Okay, at number 6, Neil, I have Black Mirror, which people mentioned in their long lists, and I was sad that it only made people's long lists and didn't make their top 10s. Because specifically the first 3 episodes? 4 episodes. 3 episodes.
There was only 5 in total, wasn't there, man?
So it was the 3 episodes I thought were outstanding, classic Black Mirror. Joan is awful.
Yes.
Was
just shattering the fourth wall and the fifth wall.
Yeah, Loch Henry and and Beyond the Sea.
Yeah.
Those 3 episodes in particular, I thought were some of the best TV I'd seen all year, and I think if it had continued with that sort of quality of episodes for all 5 episodes, it would have been near the top 3.
Beyond the Sea, that was recently ripped off and made as a film called Foe with Paul Mescal and Saoirse Ronan. And what a surprise, they've made a bad film. It's literally the exact plot of that episode, but as a film. So it's longer, more boring. And you're like, yeah, you're acting really well, but also they did this in an hour and it was better.
Can you remind me what that episode was?
Beyond the Sea is the one where the man has to go up on a spaceship and work, and they send a clone replacement down.
Yeah.
His wife.
And they made a longer version of that?
It's basically made a film that is that with Paul Mescal and Saoirse Ronan called Foe. So avoid it. It's not very good.
I'll be honest, the show barely held me on, and to think that there's something even longer makes me just shudder.
Well, you didn't like Black Mirror? That you didn't like?
No,
that
I
too?
liked it, but
Oh.
that episode was very borderline for me because I'm like, I get it. I thought even an hour was too long. It could have been done even faster.
Well, we as critics of the show did say online, why didn't you just send up like the clone and leave the real guy down there? Why do you like that invalidates the whole point of the
Oh.
storyline, right? If
That's
it's supposed to be a
a great
perfect
idea.
clone of the guy who's capable of learning and all this
Yeah.
stuff, then just
Let's
send the
just
clone up.
gloss over that. That doesn't matter.
Getting back
man.
to your first one, David, Joan is awful. I mean,
Yeah.
fuck, man, what an
That was
episode.
great.
I mean, Selma fucking Hayek. Hey.
Selma fucking Hayek.
Oh yeah.
And Ben, what do you have at your number 6?
My number 6 is something that's missed off a lot of people's lists, mainly because I think of its kind of slow pacing and weaker ending than people hope for. But I am keeping the Force firmly alive with Ahsoka.
Bless you.
That's probably racist in somewhere in the galaxy, so I think you should probably cut that out. But yes, Ahsoka, the Dave Filoni's love letter to a character that he created many years ago for the Clone Wars series, which I think like this season of Ahsoka, this first season of Ahsoka, like had so much Clone Wars kind of vibe to it that I was really excited. Lots of people are telling me that it was bad because the ending wasn't all that good. And I'm like, yeah, but like look at the episodes we get. Like look at some of the like incredible set pieces that you get to like, look at and be a part of in the Star Wars world. And quite frankly, the way that they're like canceling series at the moment, I'm glad that this made it into the world. We've done a podcast on this, and like there's bits of it that I didn't like, but it didn't sully it for me enough for it to not make my list. And emotionally, like Ahsoka is a character that I have watched for years now, and for Rosario Dawson to get like her shot at playing this character in such a real way, like I was just on board straight away. I mean, David Tennant is incredible as like the sidekick robot, which everybody knows in Star Wars. You're nobody if you haven't got a sidekick robot. I mean, Luke Skywalker's so badass, he's got 2. So the stuff that it does well, it did so well, and the stuff that it did badly was whatever. Like it didn't affect me too much. Some of the dogfight scenes were just unbelievably good, and when you finally get to the end and Grand Admiral Thrawn, his stormtroopers are all like disheveled and like patch themselves up with like gold and stuff. Like there's some of the most badass looking stormtroopers you've ever seen in a show. Like it was just great TV for me. Also, the fact that they dropped it on my birthday this year was quite frankly another like step up the ladder. So yeah, Ahsoka, a firm number 6 there for me. I really, really loved it.
I enjoyed it. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I'm a bit more. It's higher up on my list of Star Wars shows. I think. Yeah, for me, you have. I think I've got Andor at the top, Mando, and then this is like number 3 for me.
Mm-hmm. See, I mean, Andor's great, and I love it for very different reasons. But like, I really enjoyed Obi-Wan, and lots of people like said that was rubbish.
I enjoyed Obi-Wan as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just happy. Like, my friend Bert said to me once a few years back, like, I think it was when Rian Johnson's Star Wars movie came out, and I was a bit like, oh, God damn it, man. Like, yeah, it's such an opportunity to make something amazing, and he blew it. Bert just put his hand on my shoulder and he went, dude, I'm just happy they're making Star Wars. And I was like, you know what? That's absolutely fucking right. And that's the way that I've looked at this stuff ever since. I'm just happy that something that as a kid that I loved is now being like given to other kids. I think it's fucking brilliant.
We also had Space Whales. Intergalactic space whales.
And she surfed in the mouth of an intergalactic space whale. I mean, who thought that would be something that someone said out loud ever?
Also, I mean, like you say, I thought Natasha Liu Bordizzo as Sabine Wren. I thought she was brilliant. I thought she came in, and I know where people were moaning that Ahsoka was a bit too like reserved in it, and I was like, yeah, but you can't have all the characters being like out there and crazy, and you've literally got her like Padawan is the out of control crazy character, right?
So Ahsoka's now become like, whether she admits it or not, even though she's like a Ronin character. I've got a lot of time for the Ronin aspect of a lot of stories here. You might have noticed a theme, but she's now the master, so she's now got a heavier responsibility on her shoulders, which is why she's more reserved.
I also loved you just got Mary Elizabeth Winstead in it as well as Hera, and like
Yeah, about nepotism in casting in Star Wars stuff. Oh, she's married to Ewan McGregor, who plays Obi-Wan. She just happens to get, like a major casting in this.
This
But
this is
also,
nepotism I can get behind, honestly.
I mean, she was fantastic in it, and like I am quite seriously joking. But
I'm a big fan of hers.
I mean, ever since Scott Pilgrim, like, she can't do anything
Yeah.
wrong. But like,
come on, you can go back to Death Proof, man, as well.
yeah, I forgot she was in Death Proof. Good shout.
Yeah.
But Ray Stevenson in this,
I'm really frustrated here because his character was so interesting, and we're not going to get to see where his storyline might have gone. They're going to have to do a bit of, because sadly, obviously, Ray Stevenson passed away right before this came out.
really,
and
yeah, that was a.
He
real
is so
shock.
good in it.
I mean, does he just did they just have him like walk into the living force and he just like disintegrates and then they're like, all right, okay, next. I mean, it's a real shame because you're right. His character had so much going for him, like plot wise.
He's set up as a villain, and you're like, he's not though. Really,
He's not. He's kind of like an anti-hero. He's on his own path, and he's
was the
like,
yellow lightsabers, so they're in the middle.
Oh, yellow lightsaber, yeah, that would put him in right in the middle of the color scheme.
Yeah,
and of course, we always have to say later on, justice for Hayden Christensen,
Yeah,
who proved without Lucas's shitty script and direction, oh look, he can actually act really well and be fucking good on screen.
Ewan McGregor stuck up for him really, really heavily when they were doing press for this, and he said, "Look, back in the day, like Hayden Christensen, he didn't have a lot of acting experience, but we were in big blue rooms acting to people holding ping pong balls up above our heads." He's like, even Ewan McGregor like doesn't come across great in some of those scenes.
No.
So Hayden Christensen to be able to he was feeding off of the energy that he was getting from Ewan McGregor, and then it was being fed back to him. So it was just like it was overacting on an enormous scale. However, it's all they had. It wasn't like it wasn't like now they have the volume. They have full battalions of stormtroopers and stuff, and they can really, really get into it. So I mean, yeah, I think that Hayden Christensen, I didn't hate him in the originals. I thought he was dealt a pretty shitty script at some point.
I mean, come on, they made Natalie Portman look pretty bad in it as well, right?
Yeah, and that's difficult, man. Like any script that can make Natalie Portman not look great is difficult. I mean, it's that's a hurdle. But yes, you're right. Like justice for Hayden Christensen, and now he's going to get back into acting. He's like it now, and he's good for him. I'm stoked about the whole thing. I think it's done good things.
That's one of the greatest things about this like extended Star Wars universe and TV is that all these characters and actors who were perhaps badly served by Lucas's prequels are getting their chances to go, hey, guess what? We can actually act really well.
Yeah.
And we're getting a moment where the fandom is kind of like, we want them back. We want that happen with Ahmed Best Din as well.
Just had to mention him as well. Yeah.
He got obviously it's a different character, but still. Brilliant. Moving on. Jose, what do you have at number 6?
Number 6 is Invincible. The second season of Invincible. It's even only just halfway through 4 episodes.
I was about to say, because it was on every Friday, and then it stopped. And I was like, where is it? Where is Invincible?
Yeah, it's a mid-season
Is it
break.
Been back?
It's currently... I mean, it's really interesting to see that it took a break because I even saw a TikTok from an official account from them saying that they're working on the next 2 seasons. So to see a season break already is really interesting. But it is animation, so... I can see why even the great Rick and Morty had to take a break, but we won't go there. Invincible,
because no one's mentioned Rick and Morty on this entire podcast, and it does have a new season out this year.
Yes, it does. You're right.
And it was fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Right.
I've not seen it. I've not seen the new season yet.
David, you remind me of Morty so much sometimes.
You know what though? To sidetrack with Rick and Morty, they had new character actors, or voice actors. It was horrible at the beginning, and it got tolerable near the end, but that's about it.
Tyler, your sex tape.
Yeah. Invincible season 2, episodes 1 through 4. Really good, and to be honest, it took for those who watch the show, don't know the comics. It's pretty fun watch. I feel like because I've done a little research on the comics, it might have rushed through a few things, but I guess with only 4 episodes to really lay down the story.
Have you spoiled yourself, Jose? Have you read ahead?
Honestly, I did a little bit. I try to avoid the major arcs, but when you see side characters, you kind of tend to know where they end up going. Honestly, they developed the mother pretty well. Honestly, I wasn't expecting that, and they put her through the ringer a little bit.
Well, she's just a pet. Like, why do you need to?
Ooh.
We don't
But
need to see her.
that just goes to show you that if they can develop the mother really well, a lot of the other characters are going through some really interesting arcs. And
Well, I mean, they've got Sandra Oh playing the mother in it, right? So
Oh,
you're not going to give her nothing to do.
whole
You're going to give her
cast.
a meaty storyline.
yeah, like honestly, Sandra Oh is not even the best actor on there. It's like freaking J.K. Simmons, Steven Yeun,
Yeah.
Zachary Quinto. Like, come on, guys. He's
Oh, Brit is in this.
Jillian Jacobs.
Oh, brilliant!
I mean, seriously, all of these are
Yeah.
all of these are great actors.
The opening episode of season 2 changes to status quo massively on where the season's going. So you're like, at number 6, I have Barry season 4. This is Bill Hader's masterpiece. And this, kind of like another show we talked about, went from a straight 30-minute sitcom about a hitman who wanted to be an actor to a really dark drama that had more of a hint of Breaking Bad and The Sopranos about it. Yes, despite looking like a 30-minute comedy, Barry absolutely deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as those two classic shows.
Yeah.
Hader wrote many of the episodes himself as well as directing. In fact, he directed every single episode in the show's 4th and final season. And he is superb. I mean, his career best performance in the main role of professional killer Barry Berkman, who's trying to leave that life behind. Stephen Root was amazing as Fuches. He's an old family friend of Barry's who essentially grooms him to become a killer in his army career and post that. And again, Stephen Root, if you remember, he plays Milton in Office Space.
Oh yeah,
And he undergoes such a massive character. It's just one of the biggest character transformations you'll see between season 3 and season 4 of
Oh,
Barry.
yes, you're right. I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil that for people I'm saying, but it's
It's great.
amazing. So you've seen all season 4 of Barry then, Jose?
I have. And
Amazing.
it you know what's funny is one of those times where you think it has to go one way and it does. It just does. It doesn't
just
hold
does. It
back.
has to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Sarah Goldberg as well. She's got to become a star now, thanks to the. If you're a young actress playing the role of a young aspiring actress, it's just really cleverly done. She's so massively narcissistic as well, man.
Yes. The whole setup.
I don't know. She could be such an unlikable, hateable character, but she just sways you on side, and it's like it was such a
she's realistic.
walk line.
Like I've seen
Yeah.
the first couple of seasons of this, and she's just very
Yeah.
realistic. It feel like the way that she emotes and the way that she puts herself across is just really down to earth.
Yeah.
Like and properly like yeah, I could see that choice being made. That makes a lot of sense.
And I've seen some retrospectives saying, like, basically showing when Barry unleashes his acting, so quote unquote, because of his, what he goes through. She sees that as him emoting to her, and then she kind of rises up from that. So it's kind of funny how he's just breaking down literally, but she sees him as just acting, and so she gets
like Team
inspired by
America.
that.
That's the greatest acting I've ever seen, Gary.
Top Gun actor.
There we go.
We can't not mention Anthony Carrigan's NoHo Hank, a Chechen gangster
Oh,
who would
man.
rather be an interior designer at Antiqua and a person who goes antiquing rather than like a murderous hitman. And again, his arc in the show from henchman to where he ends up is just superb. I mean, again, cast him in all this stuff, man. He actually played Victor Zsasz in Gotham and was brilliant in that. When that show was occasionally okay. And of course, we get another career best from Henry Winkler as Gene Cusimmo, a down on his luck acting teacher who's also a bit of a scammer. And initially, he sees how good Barry is and begins mentoring him. And again, their lives get so massively intertwined and complicated. Honestly, Barry is a masterpiece. And again, not enough people watch it or talk about it. So go and look at it now because the whole run's finished. And not many shows. You always say when you have these great shows, did they stick the landing? Barry fucking nails the ending, man.
Yeah,
he just
it did.
absolutely executes it ice cold in the head, in the face. It's brilliant.
Ooh.
And that brings us on to number 5. And David, you have at number 5, I believe, a show we have already mentioned.
We have already
Extraordinary.
mentioned it. It is extra. Oh man, you've ruined the moment, Jose.
Dude,
There was a
sorry.
big reveal
Thunder,
building up
what
to
an
that.
extraordinary dick move.
Yeah, come on, man.
Oh, I was so excited. I'm sorry.
It was extraordinary, which was your number 7, I believe, Neil, or 6,
believe it was.
or 8, or something. Yeah. The only thing I want to do is in
All the
season
numbers.
2. The only extra thing I want to say is in season 2, I want to see more of the man that can summon a fish.
Moving on to your number 5, Ben. And wow, what a show.
I mean, it is, right? I mean, I'm not going to talk too long about this because all I need to say is Gary Oldman playing basically a tramp who is in charge of an entire part of MI5. Like, he is the worst version of himself. He plays...
Jackson Lamb.
Thank you. He plays Jackson Lamb, who is the top guy at Slough House. The show is called Slow Horses. It's on Apple TV. It is phenomenal. It's got 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's really high up in IMDb, like 8 out of 10, 5 out of 5 on Empire. It's such an underplayed show. It's basically Gary Oldman is in charge of the idiots of MI5. If you fuck up, you go to Slough House. You either retire or you go to Slough House. He has so much contempt for MI5 and everything that it does. He is the perfect anti-hero. I think the only person that could possibly join his crew of people and be as good of an anti-hero is Deadpool. And that's all I need to say about that show.
Nice.
All I will add on to it, mate, is I've been really busy and lead up to Christmas. So I watched the first 2, and then I watched 3, 4, and 5 back to back on Saturday night. And I was like,
easily done, isn't it?
And I was like, oh my God, it's so good. It's so funny.
It's like it's great because it's on its 3rd season now. I'm talking about season 3 right now, and it hasn't actually aired the finale. I think the finale came out today, and I haven't watched it
today.
Yet.
And I will be watching that tonight.
So
tonight I will be watching that finale.
So season 1 was fantastic. Season 2, a little bit it plateaus, doesn't do so well. Season 3, they come back swinging, and it's just phenomenally funny. Brilliant poke at everything that we hold dear as like. The security services they're there for us, and they're like, they know everything that we should not need to know, and they keep us safe. It's the opposite of James Bond, and they still get the job done. It's fucking excellent, man.
It's a phenomenal show. Jose, what do you have at number 5?
I have a really fun show called Schmigadoon. All right, so Schmigadoon season 2, it plays off of season 1, where a couple is having relationship issues. They go into a town from the 1940s that's all musical. And so in season 1, they kind of figure things out. Season 2, it kind of plays on the idea of musicals, but later on, instead of the 1940s, it plays on like Chicago, Sweeney Todd, like darker musicals. And it's really fun. And to be honest, I'm not even a fan of musicals and theater, but Keegan-Michael Key and Cecily Strong are really great. Kristen Chenoweth is in this, and Jane Krakowski with Alan Cumming. Those are such good stars that like it really makes the show really fun to watch, and it's kind of like a breath of fresh air for watching TV because it's fun, and even though like it kind of plays on darker themes, it really plays it lightheartedly. So that's really why I kind of put it up so high, because it was such a different kind of vibe, and the actors are just really fun to watch. Titus Burgess is a narrator. And at first, he's only kind of just sprinkled in, but then near the end, it just really used him a lot more.
Nice, man. Yeah, you recommended it to me, Jose. I've watched the first couple. I just haven't gone back to it yet, but I'm going to. At some point.
I watched season 1. Do you think that season 2 like stands up to that? Because I thought that was a really good season 1.
It's different because it's like I said, it plays on the darker themed musicals from later years, like Chicago and Sweeney Todd, like heavily on those two. But if you like them, I think you'll enjoy season 2, and I did.
I'm into it. I want to give it a go.
And this sounds like it's custom built for David.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So with Keegan-Michael Key, a lot of the stuff I see in him, it's very American comedy, if that makes sense. And it doesn't really. I felt like it never really transcended to me in a sort of a British comedy sense, if that makes sense. I don't know how you two feel.
You guys are a little more dry, I would say.
But so everything I've seen him in, his comedy has never really been for me. So I don't know. It might be different this show.
No, I gotta say it plays on his style. So he might not be your favorite character, honestly. And in the first season, he's not supposed to be, because he plays one of the reasons his character is kind of almost afraid to commit in the first season. So Cecily Strong does a great job because she's the one that's a big fan of all these musicals, and she's kind of the one that leads him through the process and saying, hey, this is what I think we should need to be doing. This is why I'm happy, why things might be happening this way. So Keegan-Michael Key is the one that kind of grows throughout the show.
Right. And at number 5 on my list, we have Deadlock, which I don't think made anyone else's list. And
it was terrible.
It's not. It's misunderstood. God, it's misunderstood, mate. David.
You told me to watch this. I fucking hated that first episode.
This is your test.
It's really not my comedy. This one.
No, but the thing is, David, it's funny because the reason you didn't like it was the introduction of the second cop, Eddie, right? Because she was like a comic caricature.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan.
And that is the one reason almost everyone else who I've read hates the show is because the character's too much. They can't stand her. but you need that opposite with the other cop at the start of the show, and then it becomes like this buddy cop thing.
What's it about?
Deadlock is the best black comedy Australian serial killer show of the year, and
Is it also the only?
probably
humor?
the only black comedy Australian serial killer show of the year? But and I think the show honestly should have been massive. And the one reason I don't think it was, it's exactly the reason David rushed up against it, is the performance of one of the leads, actress called Madeline Sammy, as Eddie Redcliffe. So, basic setup of the show is a local man is murdered in the small town of Deadlock, set in Tasmania, and the police department is about 3 people. And so they have to send outside help from the mainland of Darwin. And local sergeant Dulcie Collins is put out, and she has to because they said, "Oh yeah, we're sending a character called Eddie in," and so everyone expects it to be a man, and then it's a woman. Then these 2 cops who just can't stand it. You know, Dulcie is like she's the button down, repressed, by the book person, and then she's got this absolute easy way out on everything. She's like, "Oh, it's probably that then. Let's do that." You know, there's a bit where they have to tell a guy in the first episode his brother's dead, and he goes, "Oh, I love that cunt like my brother." Well, he was your brother. Oh yeah, you know, it's that kind of comedy. It's really funny, man.
It's not funny.
And look, Eddie can be a lot. And like you said, David, I know a few people said they can't stand that character and stop watching.
It wasn't just that; it was comedy like that moment that you just mentioned. I just didn't find it funny. It's just
Come on, the show opens with 2 women drunk stumbling back from the pub on the beach, and one of them trips over and right into the penis of a dead guy on the beach. And the shot is framed low down, so you literally see her eye turned around and she's looking right at it. It's fucking hilarious. That's like, but then it's kind of like this moody.
I love that David said he doesn't like it, and then Neil just starts shouting about some girl falling off the guy's dick. Like that's gonna fucking change your mind. Yeah, how much you like girls? You like girls, David? Yeah. Well, how about dicks? You like them?
Yeah.
The show's got everything you like.
It's got all the dicks in the world. Just love it.
What I would say is, if you've ever watched a TV show, you know that when you get characters of such blatant opposites, you know they're going to eventually work together and like work well and get a grudge and respect to take down said killer, right? That's every kind of cop show, or where you have the mismatched partner thing. And what makes the show superb for me is it walks the line of serial killer, dark drama, and just outright comedy so well. The tonal shifts are hilarious. Supporting cast are great too. There's a character called Ray Pies. Now say that slowly and think about it. And he's like, and a character says that to him. He's like, "Can you please not call me that?"
That's so bad.
Like, "Can you please not call me that? That's not my name." "Yeah, Ray Pies. That's what everyone calls you." "Yeah, that's not my name's actually Ray." This. Oh. And you got the 2 junior police people there. You got Sven, who asks if the body being found on the beach will make him late for Pilates in the first episode. One of the stars of the show is an actress called Nina Oyama, and she steals almost all the scenes in the show as the overeager like assistant girl called Abby. Her fiance is James in the show, and he's the local coroner, and he's a massive wanker. And she's just so funny in the show. I mean, I love this show, man. It's a shame that more people haven't seen it, but I can see David's point and why some people don't like it. But if you go with the performance of Madeline Sammy, the edges get blunted a little bit as the show goes on, because you're like, oh no, she's actually good at her job. Oh, okay, they are going to work together. But there's a brilliant natural end to the series, and they do a great setup for a potential second season.
My number 4 is Gen V. So Jose.
Great, fantastic. Let's move on to Ben. Go ahead, David. You can talk about Gen V. You have 30 seconds.
No, that's it. We've already spoken about it, so there's nothing more to say.
We're going from Slow Horses at number 5 to
Two Strange New Worlds at number 4, which we've already talked about, and I think I've laboured on the points of this far too much. So let's move on.
Okay, Jose, what do you have at number 4?
Oh, I have a different show for once.
Son of a bitch.
This show
We had a
called
good thing going.
It was making time. We were making time, Jose.
All right, for my number 4 again, it's a new show. It's called Platonic. I think it's only going to be 1 season. Highly recommended, especially if you're in this group of people who are over 35.
Oh, not for me then.
Ooh, sorry, man. I'm out of that. I ain't in there yet, bro.
Give it about 5-10 years, and you'll really enjoy the show. It stars Rose Byrne and Seth Rogen, a combination I knew I would love. Rose Byrne, honestly, is probably one of my favorite underrated comedic actresses, because she doesn't seem like someone who'd be funny, but she is. She just does such a great job, especially like in Bridesmaids.
Spy as well.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
She's amazing in Spy.
So the surface level premise of the show is that these 2 friends, they've kind of lost touch, and they come together, and then they have fun, but almost a little too much fun, and things get awkward. but the whole idea is like they're just friends. And honestly, I love that because I have a lot of female friends and I can relate. But Luke McFarlane also plays a really good role as the almost too perfect husband. If you don't really recognize his name, the biggest thing he's done before this was Bros back in 2022, and then a lot of Hallmark movies. So it's really interesting to see him kind of step up, but also kind of play something he's familiar as a loving husband who is kind of a little too picture perfect.
We did a spoiler podcast on this, didn't you? You and me delved into Platonic.
Yes, we did. We did, yeah. And but we didn't get to the end because it was still in the middle of the season, I believe.
Well, we're not going to spoil that here, but the main thing we had going for us, we was like, the husband's too perfect. Is he going to do something? Because obviously they're a couple, and then Seth Rogen plays her best friend who isn't, and like the idea is, can they just be friends, or is one of the two of them going to do something to fuck it all up?
Wait, sorry, I was just going to say, isn't this the couple from Bad Neighbours? The husband
Yeah,
and wife.
and it's the right director of Bad Neighbours as well.
Yeah,
I completely forgot about that.
Nicholas Stoller, the director of Bad Neighbours as well. Yeah.
And that makes sense why they're such a good duo. And I think, yeah, they just really work well off of each other. Honestly, that the whole show I think is fun. The side characters, they range from like really funny to almost a little too annoying, but it never really crosses that line. In my opinion.
That's Seth Rogen in this show as well. Actually, he's a little bit. He doesn't go full Rogen, but he's close. You're like, okay, wind it in a little bit, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who his character's supposed to be. He's supposed to be like, the like late 30s man child who's got out of a relationship and is just fucking shit up left, right, and center. Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, perhaps we all do recognize ourselves a little bit in him sometimes.
No, but yeah, I liked how the show ended, and I think for anyone who's at least over 35, I definitely recommend watching the show. You'll kind of relate to some things more than others, but yeah, I think it's a great watch.
Yeah, I think if you want a good rom-com, you put that on, and then you also do Colin with Accounts. I think they're quite nice
companion pieces.
A double bill, as we say. So that brings me to my number 4, and that is The Last of Us, which we've already talked about in great detail. So that means we're going to be shooting all the way back to David.
Fuck, I weren't prepared. That went too quickly. I'm just so used to you talking for like 20 minutes.
And number 3, David, you have...
is Ghosts. The BBC TV show, BBC TV comedy. And it is about a couple that have inherited a house at Button House. And it's one of them has a near-death experience where all of a sudden she can see all of the ghosts that inhabit the house. And there's all different people from different time periods. And it is fucking funny as shit. It is the best British comedy.
Really
it's one of the best British comedies I've seen since, like, I really liked like the Red Dwarfs. I really like
Red Dwarf.
Yeah, like
it's got that kind of humour to it, though, hasn't it?
It's that classic British humour. I really enjoy the show. There's actually American show as well. That's sort of,
and it's fine, but you just like.
I feel like I'm learning on this particular podcast that when Neil said something is fine, it's his polite way of saying "fuck that, I'm not watching it ever again." It's fine. It's just fine. It's just fine.
If I was never going to watch it again, I would say I would set it on fire and throw it in the sea.
Right, but then you would put it out and it would survive. You're an idiot.
But it would then drown because it's at sea.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, but Ghost is a brilliant, funny, heartwarming TV comedy series.
How many seasons of it is there?
There's 5, I think, at the moment.
Oh, there's lots to dig into. Is it typical British seasons where it's like 6 episodes per season?
Yeah.
So really, it's like one season,
and 2 Christmas specials.
Oh, okay.
I want to say the American version I heard got better because it has picked up some steam recently from what I've seen.
The American version basically got through all the plot lines. It's just done in Office. It's done in Office. It like took the basic idea of the show and then ran through them all in the first series and like, right, so we've got this really popular show and no other story. Still our own thing. I do quite like this subtle changes. Like you got a caveman character in the English one, and then in the American version he is a Viking. So, little things like that. And they made the old woman a bit more attractive in the American version than she is in the English version.
Of course.
Kind of
I think you've done her a disjustice there, Neil.
No, she's horrific, and she's supposed to be, and that's okay. The show, all the characters and the writers on the show, everyone, it's the Horrible Histories crew.
Yeah.
Which is like a UK kids.
It's a kid show.
But I mean, some of the jokes in it, the double entendres are superb. It's just. It's one of the biggest British sitcoms for years. And I mean, mainstream success. You're a mainstream success in the UK when you have a show that is on BBC One on Christmas Day in a primetime slot, and that's when the Ghosts
Yeah.
Christmas special's on.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think if you're a fan of anything that's like British humor at all, so like like your Red Dwarfs, your Blackaders,
Me.
it's
Ooh,
exactly
okay.
the Ben Lords.
Validated. Thanks, bud.
It's definitely for you.
Yeah, so everyone, Jose, your homework is to go and watch all seasons of it, but which you can probably do in the same time it takes to watch one American season of it. Come back to us with a full written report for the next episode. Ben, that moves us on to your number 3.
Number 3. This is one that I gushed about earlier on in the year. Picard, season 3. Just a perfect slice of Star Trek nostalgia. It was brilliant. I'm just looking at the episode titles here, and I didn't realize that the first episode was called The Next Generation, and the last episode was called The Last Generation. And it's very good. There's some very, very nice waves of nostalgia all the way through this. This was it was between, I didn't know where to put Strange New Worlds, Picard, or Lower Decks. I had to get rid of Lower Decks, obviously, because of I only had 10 spaces, blah blah blah. But Picard just made me feel everything I felt like when I was watching this in the 90s. Like, I loved every single thing of it. I had shivers and pangs of I'll say nostalgia once again. But it's a perfect slice of Star Trek for me. And if you want to watch something that's thoroughly entertaining and will whisk you back to those Wednesday nights when you had to watch it on the BBC,
BBC Two.
This is the one. BBC Two, yeah.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. That was the one.
Yeah.
This is the show. This is absolutely the show, and I'm so glad that they did it and they sort of drawn a line under it, and everybody got to fulfill a role and all the in jokes that were there and stuff. It was just great. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, it was. Like we said earlier about Picard, season 1 was okay. Season 2 was absolute horseshit, and I was really worried that season 3 was going to be absolute horseshit because it was the same people and crew.
It was weird, wasn't it?
And then they just absolutely knocked it out of the park from the last series. What also it's done as well is the way they finish the show is they've set up all the new characters they brought in season 3 were amazing as well, and everyone was like, "Well, wait a minute, you've got a whole new side crew here that could have its own show that everyone's pitching for, called Star Trek Legacy."
Which I think that's really smart because they can do a spin-off like that if they want to.
And everyone wants it.
We
all want it.
They've loosely set that up. And
do it now, you utter bastards. Give me Star Trek Legacy.
There you go. And I promise you, Neil will not call it fine.
It will not be fine. It will not get in the sea on fire and then go out. It brings us to Jose's number 3.
A wonderful show called Silo. Instead of out in space, it's contained in one really long tube in the ground.
Is it about grain?
No, quite not. I'm going to keep it simple and short because it's hard to talk about this show without going through the convoluted plot.
And spoiling it.
Right? It's from a series of books, so you know that there's a lot of story to tell. Rebecca Ferguson is honestly probably starting to become one of my favorite actresses. I think the cast is really well stacked. Will Patton is in there as well. So if anything, it really kept my interest for a show that is really tough to follow sometimes in terms of like, where is this going? But
it's a lot of flashbacks and flash forwards, isn't there? And like, oh, we're in the present, now we're in the past, now we're in the present, now we're in the past.
Exactly. But I think it balances it well. And honestly, the fact that I never really got bored, I was just like, okay, where's this going? So for the most part, I just really enjoy the show. And I think it's a great series. And I hope that the books, I heard the main book is a bit different with certain characters and how much they focus on them, but they're all there. So it's still kind of following the overall structure.
I'm looking forward to season 2, but I think it's going to have competition with Fallout when Fallout comes out. I think Fallout's going to do that story and just better and more chaotic and funny.
I think Fallout's just going to be a different vibe because it looks more comedic, honestly.
And we'll be talking about Fallout definitely on one of the next episodes coming up. So that brings me to my number 3, and it's a show that, again, is on no one else's list, and is barely mentioned in popular places, and it's fucking brilliant. And that is the third and final series of Sterling Harjo and Taika Waititi's coming-of-age comedy drama, Reservation Dogs. And this is set on a Native American reserve in rural Oklahoma. And again, hardly anyone talks about the show. All 3 seasons of the show are now on Disney+. They're only half an hour long. Honestly, it's so good, man. Like, in season 1, we mainly followed the main 4 Res Dogs. And it's Elora. Yes, the main character is called Elora Danan because she was named after someone who was a really big Willow fan, which is just a brilliant jumping off point for that character right there. And then her friends are Bear, Cheese, and Willie Jack. And the show starts with them dealing with the fallout of their best friend Daniel taking his own life, and it was his dream to go to California. So the plot of season 1 is them committing low-level crimes to get enough money to go on this road trip to California to honor their dead friend. Obviously, things don't go as well, and it's only at the end of season 2. Season 2 kind of takes you on a different journey, but season 2 takes them to California, which is where we find them at the start of season 3. Now, ResDog's big claim is that the show is almost wholly written, produced, and stars Native American actors. So that means you can't argue with any of the authenticity of the stories. As the show develops, you spend more time with the kids' parents and the wider community. So, it starts with the kids and it expands out to the side characters and other people in the town and on the reservation. And it strikes this great balance between comedy and bittersweet drama. All the cast are brilliant across the board, and all the kids deserve to be stars in their own right. Season 3 has Killers of the Flower Moon star Lily Gladstone in it, in a supporting role as Willie Jack's aunt who's in prison. You got an episode in season 3 that's like a flashback to the 1970s, and it's like watching a Native American take on Dazed and Confused, which was absolutely amazing. And you get a guest performance in the penultimate episode from a massive actor playing Alora's dad, who she's never known, and he finally turns up. And again, the casting is so spot on with that thing, and it's just a great episode. I mean, again, and when we said about Derry Girls, right, I learned more about Native American culture from this show than anything I've ever seen before in my life. It's and when you watch Native American portrayals,
it's something that's not educated here, though, isn't it? We don't really learn about anything Native American rise. A primary school, a very small amount, but then that's it. It's not something that we're going to be taught in secondary schools here. So it's
no, exactly. And what the show does, like you say, when you look at a lot of standard Hollywood films and TV shows, it's always this traditional view. They're either the helper or they're the bad guys. Native American characters, they're always portrayed the same way. And so, even in films, and in fact, actually, the actress who plays Alora in this criticised Killers of the Flower Moon, saying, great, yeah, one of the worst times in our history, told from the white guy's point of view. Brilliant. I was like, fair play to her, and you can't argue with that. It's a brilliant film, and obviously Scorsese did, involve as much of the Native American community as did in making the film. But as she said, the story of Killers of the Flower Moon is such a heartbreaking, tragic story. It should have been wholly focused on Lily Gladstone's character, not from DiCaprio's character's point of view. So, hey, who are we to argue when someone is clearly right on that one? Look, this is a real, authentic show, and more people should watch it. All 3 seasons are now on Disney+, and as they're only 30-minute episodes, you got no excuse. And it's a fond farewell to the dear lady, William Knifeman, and all the ResDogs. That brings us on to your number 2, David.
My number 2 is possibly the greatest video game adaptation of all time in The Last of Us, which we've already been discussing.
Which then takes us on to Ben's number 2.
My number 2 was an absolute blast. Probably the only thing that I've really given a shit to watch on Netflix this year. Netflix for me has dropped the ball a little bit when it comes to their programming, and it was the sensational One Piece, with our hero Monkey D. Luffy on his quest to become the greatest pirate in the world. I mean, what do you say about a show that is only 1 season in and already has like millions and millions of followers? I mean, obviously it was an anime before it was the live action. It's been around for a hell of a long time, and it's got such a rich history of people loving it. But for the show to be as good as it was, I was absolutely thrilled. And I knew nothing of it until I watched the series, and then looked back into it and discovered, it's like I say, about its history. So yeah, I was absolutely blown away by this. And I was watching this because it came out at the same sort of time as Ahsoka. So, I was watching this alongside it, and I couldn't stop. I literally just binged the whole thing straight through. And that's becoming rare now. Like for me to, I'll binge watch stuff because it's there, not because I want to keep watching it. This, I had to, if I had to leave it, I was annoyed. So, and that's the thing, that's what's put it so far up on my list. It was engaging, it was clever, it was smart, it was so well written, beautifully acted. The action pieces were incredible. I am an action guy after what I said about, Ted Lasso at the start. It is brilliant. It was just clever. I can't praise it enough. And I haven't had an opportunity to really talk about it. I mean, Like this is the first chance I've actually had to talk about it in this context. So I'm glad that I got that opportunity. But yeah, for second on my list, and it was really tight between this as my number one. This almost became my number one, but there was a more emotional cornerstone for my number one. But if you haven't seen it, it's basically Monkey D. Luffy and his pirate crew explore the fantastical world of endless oceans and exotic islands in search of the world's ultimate treasure to become the next pirate king. It's brilliant fun. I mean, you can pretty much watch it with a family. It's just banging. I got nothing but good things to say about it.
I think with this show, the casting of is it Luffy or Luffy? Monkey D.
Oh, it's Luffy, isn't it? Yeah, I say Luffy because that's how I've written it down. It's Luffy, so Luffy.
Yeah, the kid, like his casting from the anime to this was like that was the one thing they fucking had to get right, because he's such a he's everything about him is so likable, but then when he turns it on and he becomes serious, he's got that switch, right? Mm-hmm. It's like that kind of that Goku character that I mentioned that I really like Dragon Ball, like Goku, casting Goku is fucking, you got to get that casting right. And it was the same with Luffy, and I think they just smashed it with I can't pronounce his first name. Inukai? No, Inukai. Got Inukai Gotti.
Here's a question. It seems like you've gotten some shows that have been excellent translations into either from book to show or from cartoon to show. What do you think is the reason for that? Is it just the casting, or you think it's proper writing, or
I think it's been years and years of people just doing shit adaptations. There's always a joke, isn't there? There's always this thing well, the book's better, and that's been such a thing. And I think that we've grown up in that culture of well, the book's better. So now we've got a team of Hollywood upstarts who are kind of sick of the book being better.
And perhaps have grown up watching that and looking at the shit version and going, no, I want to reclaim it.
Because in my eyes, there's no reason why the book should be better. If you take your time and you can do it. Is Lord of the Rings a good example of that? The book is, you're never going to beat that. But you look how much effort went into that, and for those movies to be as good as they are, then all of a sudden people start going, well, hang on, we can do better than this. And not just going, yeah, that's good enough, that'll do, it's close enough, and we've captured the main points, and that's all we need to do. So I think that I think to answer your question, I think it's the attitude of Hollywood now.
Excellent,
brilliant. Right now, Jose, we move on to your number 2.
Star Trek: Strange New World season 2. I binged it. It was great. I'm a big fan. We've talked about it.
You're going to be talking about it, and you're going to be talking about it in depth on our Strange New Worlds spoiler special that we're going to definitely do soon in the future. So that brings us to my number 2, which again is not on anyone's list, and I'm surprised, Ben, because it's a sci-fi epic, and yes, it's awesome. And that is the second series of Foundation, which for me was an improvement on what was already our show of the year. I think 2 years ago when season 1 came out.
Not if I was on the podcast, honestly, it wouldn't have been. Yeah, but I wouldn't have voted for it at all. It would have been boo. Didn't like it.
Okay, well, we'll get into that definitely sometime.
Yep.
And for me, it felt like Dune, the TV series, in terms of its scope and rich visual tapestry. Now, it did have a lot of time jumps, and I think for the average kind of action show fan and sci-fi fan, I think it was sometimes hard to follow the narrative in season 1. I'll freely admit, I didn't understand everything that was going on in season 1. And it was only listening to the Official Companion podcast that actually filled in all the blanks for me. That said, season 2 introduced quite a few new elements and characters, but it didn't have to do so much heavy lifting in terms of world building and plot. It introduced new characters, as you get an older version of Polly Verisuf, you get Ella Ray Smith's Queen Sareth, Ben Daniels, General Ben Rios, and most notably Dimitri Leonidas as Hober Mallow. The show introduced some humour as well this season. Season 1 was a bit serious in places. I thought that was the one thing it really lacked, and you get the humour in season 2 a bit more. However, the MVPs of season 2, as expected, Lee Pace is just brilliant as Brother Day, and the brilliant Laura Byrne as Demoiselle. And the less you know about Demoiselle, the better going into the show, really. And you just get more of her fascinating backstory. Thankfully, Foundation has been renewed for season 3, and I wonder if we actually will ever get to the 8 seasons that David Goyer, the showrunner, wants. But until then, respect and enjoy the piece.
Ooh, nice touch.
So that brings us, David, to...
Okay, no, my number 1 is... What was it? It was Ben's number 2, and it was One Piece. I just thought it was such a loving, fantastic family adventure show, and I fell in love with it, and it gripped me straight from the off. And like I said, I really like glory moments in anything. I love a glory moment, and it's just a show like that is just filled with them. And I'm a big sucker for them. I was a big fan. Anyway, we've already spoken about it a little bit, and Neil's going to have a hernia if we don't continue.
Aneurysm.
Both.
Ben, what do you have at number one?
My number one is one that we did a massive podcast on earlier on. It is Sex Education, the final season of Sex Education. Like I said, my list is about things that make me emote. And One Piece made me super, super happy at number two. But Sex Education took me on this like wild ride of emotions. Like it reminded me of being a teenager and all of that stuff that is completely like, you know, like kind of intertwined with that world. Like the cast: Asa Butterfield, Emma McKay, Kuti Gatwa, Gillian Anderson, Conda Swindell's. Like these people are going to have these amazing careers. Like moving forward, I mean, Gillian Anderson's already had one, but
you forgot Amy Lou Wood.
I did forget Amy Lee Wood, but there's also Tanya Reynolds in there as well, who was phenomenal. Mimi King, I could go on and on and on, but you don't need me to tell you how great this series is, because everybody I've spoken to that I have an opinion about this show has a very similar opinion. It's heartfelt, it's funny, it's beautiful, it's just done so well. I don't think I can say I would, if I said a bad thing about it, I'd be lying. It's that good. If you haven't seen it, please watch all 4 seasons. You will not regret it.
And it educates you about sex. That's always a good thing.
Sex, yeah.
It educates you about it.
And also, if you do want to hear more, let's talk about it more. As Ben said, we did an epic long episode, and we was joined by Marie from Two Girls, One Reusable Cup podcast, who is also a massive sex education fan. And also, honestly, again, hearing her personal reaction to the show and how it impacted her life, just it shows you how the power that show had, man.
Yeah, it is. It's a powerful love letter to teenage life and the trials and tribulations of, and it doesn't shy away from any topic, and it doesn't mistreat any topic. It's just fucking brilliant.
And that, Jose, brings us on to your number one, but also my number one.
Yes, I was
number one. Best is Jinx.
Number one. Yes,
and that show is
The Bear.
The Bear. Yeah. Look, this is the best show of the year because as cardiac-inducing as season 1 of the show was, season 2 managed to keep that tension and pace, but also develop all the characters, as well as bringing a veritable banquet of cameos to its exquisite palette. It had the best, worst family Christmas ever committed to screen, a surefire guest star appearance award for Jamie Lee Curtis as their troubled matriarch. We had the amazing Punisher versus Mr. Nobody face-off with John Berthel and Bob Odenkirk, and the show had some of the most amazing music, just as season 1 did, with REM infused, almost used as key motives of the season. For all our thoughts on The Bear, you can check out episode 78, where we spent almost an hour and a half delving into all things Bear and our predictions for season 3. Jose?
I just really enjoy the scene with Taylor Swift singing in the car. You covered it, Neil. You covered it. Honestly, it's such a great show. So good at creating tension, and the arcs for every character is honestly just really fun to see. I really genuinely enjoy Richie's arc. It's such a great thing to see, especially being topped off with that Taylor Swift singing in the car scene. I really do enjoy it. It's one of my favorites.
And so, everyone, that brings us, using the power of maths, to, well, actually, there's been a little maths snafu, because I was going to give you our top 10 shows of the year, a Mathaloo, but we have 11. So we have 4 shows that are all on 8 points. So which means we have a 4-way tie from number 11 to 8. And those 4 shows are Reservation Dogs Season 3, Silo, Picard Season 3, and Extraordinary. At number 7, we have Foundation Season 2, all on its lonesome. We have another tie at 5 and 6 with Sex Education Season 4 and Gen V. At 4, again, sitting alone in the ocean by itself on its pirate ship, we have One Piece. And we have a 3-way tie for Best Show of the Year, with all these 3 shows receiving equal votes. And I couldn't be happier with all 3 of them, to be fair. We have Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, The Last of Us, and The Bear Season 2.
Yeah. I mean, like, there are the 3 best shows this year. If you had to sum up this year in shows,
Except for Succession, but none of us liked it. So
I
yeah,
think there was only one show there that actually made 3 of your lists, though. Right? Was that?
Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
yeah,
That was the only one that 3 of you voted for.
Well,
I
Ben
got
forgot the
it,
bear, which he said
so-
in his preamble.
yeah, I did. I kind of forgot it.
But I think that this it's a nice little kind of a coverage, sci-fi, dystopian, and then just stressful.
3 words to sum up the year there. 3 words to sum up this podcast, actually, as well.
There we go.
So-
There we go.
So we watched a hell of a lot of TV this year, and that's it for We Needed Roads in 2023. We're going to be back in the new year for another 2 bumper epic specials where we're going to be previewing all the movies and shows that we want to see and that we're most excited about for 2024. So thanks to David,
He doesn't know what he's doing.
Ben,
Come back to me. I'll think of something funny.
Jose.
Jose has a machine gun now.
It's the new year, Jose. That doesn't work anymore. That was for one episode.
Oh, all right. Let me redo that. Then.
Cool.
Let me redo it.
And take 2.
Greetings and farewell. Happy New
Greetings
Year,
and
folks.
farewells. You send greetings at the end of... No.
I don't-
Start again. Again. This
Farewell,
is
everyone. Enjoy the new year. That's all I'm gonna say.
Neil's
Right,
making us think of things.
on our feet. Ben made me do this a couple of times, and sometimes it worked. Usually it didn't. So it's his fault. You're gonna get another chance. I'm gonna throw it to you one more time.
Right.
Like in Wayne's World where they did the dream sequence. And so I'd like to thank my co-host this year. I'd like to thank David, my OG co-host.
David's. I've forgotten what I was said before. You cut it in. This is work for Edit Neil. Sorry, Neil. I appreciate you. Edit Neil. I appreciate Edit Neil, not this Neil. This Neil's a dick. Edit Neil's a great guy.
And Ben.
Spoilers everywhere. It's been a blast.
And Jose.
Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful year, and I can't wait to see what happens in 2024.
We'll see you next year, folks. See you then.
We Needed Roads.